окупанти до нас в Україну. Форма новенька, воєнні машини та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.
Наші
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 729 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And the U.S. has begun threatening Russia. That's a nice change, and it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we are going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine, or more so, what is starting to develop into an international crisis and almost a full-blown major issue, maybe even leading on into a war. We're going to be making sure to cover that tonight in the best detail we can with the information that we have, but I want you all to keep in mind that with this particular story, it is currently developing as we speak at the moment. Right now, from what we understand, the U.S. government is in direct communication with the Russian Federation and is currently apparently voicing serious concerns about something that is coming up and threatening the Russians that they should not do it, otherwise it's going to be a violation of many things that have been going on. But beyond that, we have to make sure to kind of lay out the groundwork of what's been going on that has led to today, because it's something that you can't really just look at in a capsule. It's something that you really have to look at as a whole of government approach is the best way to look at it. So to explain what's been going on, the Russian Federation has been talking about, and the Department of Defense, well, they haven't really been talking about it. They've been kind of trying to keep it secret, but the U.S. Department of Defense and the Central Intelligence Agency were able to gather enough information to find out that the Russians are planning on sending an intercontinental ballistic missile or one of its warheads into Earth's orbit, so that way they could try and target and destroy American satellites, or really just knock out all satellite communication grids across the entire world if need be. This is something that we talked about a little while ago, and since then, we have heard that the United States has been trying to figure out some way to stop the Russians from doing that before it ever happens, and of course, it's been a major concern behind the scenes. We only got to talk about it for one day on the channel because there's been a lot of major things going on, but the United States has kind of run out of ideas. There's not really a lot, like I said on stream that night, that the U.S. can really do to stop that ICBM or that nuclear warhead from making it into Earth's orbit until it's too late and it's already there, when it's already a major risk and a massive issue. So the United States today, from what we've heard, according to U.S. officials, has gotten into direct contact with the Russian government and is warning them, or more so threatening them, most likely, not to deploy the nuclear-armed anti-satellite weapon. According to the United States, it violates the Outer Space Treaty, which we talked about on stream a long time ago, this treaty was made back in the early 60s. And it laid out that no major spacefaring power like the United States, the Soviet Union, and of course the successor state, the Russian Federation, would ever weaponize space, such as building military bases on celestial bodies, such as the moon, or putting weapons into Earth's orbit. That is completely forbidden, according to the Outer Space Treaty. And also, the United States says this jeopardizes U.S. national security, according to the United States official statement. We also have heard that due to this, and also due to the ongoing war in Ukraine, the United States is going to be looking at putting down another massive sanctions package tomorrow. We actually put that out on our Twitter, and if you want to get our news from there, because this actually came out a few hours before our stream even went live, there is a link in the description below to our Twitter, and you can get some of the news that's on air hours before we even get to talk about it. But moving on...
Be sure to peep that Twitter and give us a follow, too.
Peter, the Twitter's here.
But moving on from that, and outside of the United States, we also started to hear some very interesting rhetoric from Russia that makes us believe that apparently the communications that were held behind the scenes today in between Russia and the United States did not go so well. Because according to what we've been starting to hear, the Russians are not necessarily saying anything all too good. And I'll tell you all what we have from the British Ministry of Defense. They were able to summarize this the best today out of really everyone else. On the 14th of February 2024, Russian presidential spokesman Dmitry Peskov told journalists that while the special military operation began as an operation against Ukraine, over time it has taken on the form of a war against the collective West, a war when the countries of the collective West, led by the United States, are directly involved in this conflict. This is broadly consistent with a trend in Russian official rhetoric that seeks to excuse the length of the conflict and scale of Russian losses through the depiction of the war as a direct conflict with the West. Peskov went on to acknowledge that the special military operation may last a bit longer, but this can't change the course of things. This forms part of the Russian official narrative, almost certainly aimed at situating the domestic population for a long-term conflict and the associated decline in domestic living standards, while providing reassurance of that ultimate Russian victory that has still been as elusive as a Russian bank being able to survive the economic tumult of the war. But beyond that, we're starting to hear a lot of very charged rhetoric from the Russians, and at the very same time, we're seeing that the United States, on the official level, does also understand we have very limited options to deal with a Russian space nuke before it's launched, and by the time it's launched, it's probably going to be too late. Going off of all of this heightened rhetoric, we're starting to get a really good picture that things have gotten very tense behind the scenes, and it looks like that war that a lot of the top officials in NATO countries have been saying is probably on the horizon to prepare for, may actually be on the horizon for this very reason. From what we've known, to also recap a lot of what we've been covering on this channel for weeks now, many people here on this channel and around the world have noticed that certain officials, ministers of defense, and sometimes even the prime ministers and presidents of some of the countries within the NATO alliance have been coming out and telling the public within their country to prepare and stockpile food and basic essentials because things are going to be getting a lot worse going forward. This is something that we've been hearing for weeks now, and it doesn't really seem like it was well connected with anything until we're starting to see the picture that's coming out today. We're seeing that they're probably scared that there's going to be an inevitable conflict in between the Russian Federation and the United States due to the violation of the Outer Space Treaty that was just talked about that the United States is warning the Russians not to break. And we already know that the Russians are probably trying to look for any kind of an advantage that they can at the moment, because this war will probably not last too much longer if we're looking at the Russian economics side of things within Russia itself. Because today, of all days, one of the largest banks within the Russian Federation collapsed overnight. From what we know, it was the QIWI Bank. According to the Central Bank of the Russian Federation, they said that it was used to make payments for money laundering and terrorist financing, which is kind of odd that they would blast a bank after it went down, because keep in mind, this is one of the largest banks inside of all of Russia. So the fact that they're going to blast the thing after it collapsed and act like it was a force for bad is a little silly, because it was a force of economic power within Russia. And with this bank collapsing, there are economic tremors that are already starting to make their way through Russia, and we're starting to see that the system may be way more fragile than the Russians are hoping it to be, or at least hoping that they could tell the public it was. Going off of all of this, we can also see that the Russians are once again starting to ramp up the rhetoric and try and distract the Russian public outside of the economic issues on the more so just hatred of the Ukrainians. I'm not even kidding. They just went straight into talking about throwing Ukrainians into concentration camps today because none other than Dmitry Medvedev came out and said that Ukrainians that are hoping to be liberated in occupied territories should literally be sent to gulags. I'm not even kidding. He said, as a direct quote, they should be identified and punished. Send them to Siberia for re-education in forced labor camps. That was a direct quote from Medvedev today. That is absolutely insane, and that is just merely on the statement of a Ukrainian inside of occupied territory saying, I hope that we're liberated one day and that we're able to live in Ukraine again. That statement alone, according to Medvedev, is something that you need to be put in a concentration camp for. So you can kind of get an idea that the Russian government is trying to distract the Russian public by making them think it's a war with the West, and on top of that, also trying to weaponize their hatred for the Ukrainians a lot like the Nazis would have done in World War II, to distract them with their hatred more so than the declining conditions inside of Russia and how bad things truly have gotten for the Russians over these past 2 years of war.
So much for the Russians wanting to, quote-unquote, rid Ukraine of Nazis when they're literally the ones promoting that stuff themselves the strongest.
Oh, it's truly insane, especially to hear someone like Dmitry Medvedev, which I believe at this point, let me go pull this up, Prime Minister of Russia. I want to make sure that we're getting this correct. So the Prime Minister of Russia is actually Mikhail Mishustin at the moment. So what is Medvedev? Let me go check. Let's see here.
He's just the mad dog that's on the leash for now.
Let's see here. I'm trying to see what his current office is.
I'm the freak on the leash.
So this is something interesting here. He is actually the leader of United Russia, the party, United Russia, that Putin is pretty much the head of. He's technically the party leader, and right now he is also the deputy chairman of the Security Council of the Russian Federation. So he's still way up there as far as the power level goes, and also considering that he's the guy in charge of the security, he's the chairman of the Security Council, this is also starting to once again tie into, this guy actually has probably more so of a sway on what happens to Ukrainians in occupied Russian territory than anyone else would. I mean, this guy may as well be the Heinrich Himmler of Russia at this point. And with statements coming out like that, it really does start to bring up a massive concern for the safety and well-being of all of those Ukrainians that are living in occupied territory. There's at least several million of them, maybe 2 to 3 million of them throughout the occupied area that I can think of that weren't in the DPR and LPR before the invasion of 2022 began. That is very concerning to hear them say something like that, because on top of that, there is a lot of Ukrainians that have been forcefully relocated from Crimea and are currently inside of the Russian Federation as we speak. Tens of thousands of children, tens of thousands of adults. We believe that that number is actually over 100,000, and we really don't know where any of those people are, what they're doing, or what kind of state they're in. They could already be in a concentration camp or in very bad conditions, and it's something that isn't really talked about a lot. It's not something thrilling or exciting that many YouTubers can talk about, but nevertheless, it's something that's always going on in the background, and everyone always has massive questions about where did those people go? Where did all these kids and Ukrainians go? And are they okay? Because the Russians have never guaranteed their safety at all. They just got moved into Russia and completely disappeared off the map. But at the exact same time that that's going on, one part of the map that has certainly been massively talked about in Ukrainian Polish circles is the area of the map that makes up the Ukrainian-Polish border, in between Poland and Ukraine. I was trying to come up with a geographical area. South of Belarus, north of Slovakia and Hungary, west of Ukraine and east of Poland. This little area right here, which is the border area in between Ukraine and Poland, has been a major talking point, a major point of tension and friction in between the Ukrainians and the Polish Republic, or the Republic of Poland. It's largely been a point of tension because of Ukrainian grain imports into Poland. To try and explain this again, because there's been a lot said about this, and I want to make sure that we can try and keep the story clear regardless of who's saying what where. What has been happening in the background in between Ukraine and Poland is that Ukraine has not been able to ship out a large amount of their grain to a lot of the countries that would have bought it around the world. Ukraine didn't sell their grains to European countries pre-war. They actually sold their grains to countries in Africa, the Middle East, and also sold a very decent amount of it to the Chinese. Ever since the Russians have started the war in Ukraine, a lot of Ukrainian grain shipments have not been able to be fulfilled, especially to pretty much their entire market that would have been receiving their grains by shipborne transports. Because of this, the Ukrainians have been trying to find a new place to offload the grain, and the nearest and most viable options are, of course, their European neighbors, countries like Hungary, Slovakia, Poland, and Romania. And the Ukrainians have been shipping their grains into these countries in very high amounts. You have to remember, Ukraine is still, even to this day, the breadbasket of Europe, and they produce an exorbitantly high amount of grain. Even compared to the Russians, the amount of grain that Ukraine can produce is very high, and they have to find a place for this stuff to go. Otherwise, the farmers in Ukraine are going to go into financial destitution and ruin, which could end up causing massive damage to the Ukrainian agricultural industry. And while a lot of people don't consider agriculture to be an important part of any world's economy, without agriculture, people starve to death, and it becomes a long-term issue for a nation that does not have an agricultural sector. So Ukraine started to ship the grains off into a country like Poland. Poland also has a similar issue. If the farmers in Poland are undercut by cheaper grain prices from outside of Ukraine, they could end up not being able to sell their grain, leading them into financial destitution and leading them into ruin. And of course, that could become a massive strategic and not only strategic, but economic issue for Poland, because now their agricultural industry is ruined. So you pretty much have an unstoppable object in the Ukrainian grain industry meeting an immovable object inside of Poland, and they're trying to figure out how to weigh these two out, where the Polish farmers don't end up being broke and destitute, and the Ukrainian farmers also don't end up being broke and destitute as well. this has been something that is also boiled over outside of official governmental levels, as Polish farmers and truckers have actually taken it upon themselves in some areas to almost completely blockade border crossings heading from Poland and into Ukraine. And we've also seen Ukraine take official action on an actual European Union level in an attempt to try and sue Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, and Romania for trying to bar Ukrainian grain imports and protect their domestic supplies. All of this combined led to Zelensky making a plea last night in his address, which many of y'all saw, where he was talking about, Poland, we are friends with you. Please let our grain in. We're not trying to undercut Polish farmers. Let's try and figure something out so at least, something can work for everyone and a lot of Ukrainian farmers don't end up going broke and destitute. So the Polish said today that they are going to clear out the blockages and they're going to make sure that Polish and Ukrainian relations remain high, although this is a very difficult situation for both sides. According to the Polish Prime Minister, Donald Tusk, he said that Ukraine's fate hangs in the balance, and I don't need to convince anyone that this means that our fate also hangs in the balance. Pretty much saying that they're going to make sure that Ukraine will be taken care of. And while it's going to be a very difficult seesaw here to try and make sure that both sides are balanced and Polish farmers aren't being stomped out by cheap Ukrainian prices and Ukrainian farmers aren't being snuffed out by the Polish farmers trying to protect the domestic supply and their lifeline in this modern world, they're going to try and figure it out. We don't know how. I honestly have no idea. Maybe Poland is going to allow a certain number of tons of Ukrainian grain to enter the country per month, but then Ukraine is going to have to use the Danube supply corridor from Romania to try and ship the rest of their grains to other countries inside of Europe, so that way it doesn't flood a single country's economy or a single country's agricultural market and ends up leading their farmers without any option to sell their grain and end up causing a massive economical crisis inside of one of these countries. But beyond that, we also got to see that on the border there was something really cool today. Apparently, for the souring relations that are now hopefully going to be improving between Ukraine and Poland, Ukraine got a little MiG as a treat. So check this out. This is really cool. We got to see a truck inside of Poland moving towards the border and carrying the fuselage of a MiG-29 on its trailer. We're gonna mute the dubstep.
Yeah, I
trap
love the
remix.
soundtrack with it. Like, perfect for this.
And there goes the MiG.
Now look at that. A beautiful MiG. Oh, yes, that's what I'm talking about. Look at all those, like, farm vehicles, like, sitting on the road, too.
Yeah, they cleared that blockade right before this truck made it there, and so we can see the truck moving by. I wonder, let's see, it looks like a military transport. Sadly, we don't know whose. The Polish do have MiG-29s, although I believe they may have sent them all, or this may be a Polish MiG-29 that's now being transported over. But
I like how, like, the wings are just dismantled off of it. That's pretty weird.
Yeah, that's really cool. We can also, another cool thing to notice is that the engines have been removed as well. So this is literally just the frame of the fuselage that they're transporting on this truck.
Interesting. I like that. It's like a mail order, like someone sent in the live chat. It's like they just ordered this Amazon Prime. The wings come separate.
Yeah, the wings are probably going to be coming on a separate truck because they'll take a little bit to transport. But still, really nice to see that Ukraine is going to be getting another MiG-29, and hopefully it'll be helping to bolster their numbers for the Ukrainian Air Force. We do know now that according to US and Dutch reports, the F-16s will be making it into Ukraine by early summer. They said it's going to be no later than that. Of course, they've said that before, but we kind of have to take them at their word. Hopefully, they will be there very soon. And speaking of a lot of European countries outside of Poland that have been making major money moves today in terms of support for Ukraine, we can see that Latvia is taking a pretty bold action in what they sanctioned Russia on today. They sanctioned Russia on a complete import ban of Russian grain, and also Belarusian grain as well at the same time. According to what the news we got from the Kyiv Independent, Latvia is going to be the first EU country to ban imports of grain from Russia and Belarus entirely. According to the president of Latvia, he said that grain imports support the Russian economy and therefore the army that Russia is, of course, fielding in Ukraine, and therefore the imports are completely banned. This may also...
Now, here's my question. They weren't completely banned before?
Apparently, there was only a partial ban on grain imports from Russia, which is a little odd, I'm not going to lie. But
yeah,
but
it's like, what's up with that? I thought we were supposed to be, like, completely cutting them off from the economic, like, rest of the world, but we're still accepting grain from them? It's like, what the hell? It's like, I thought Europe was, like, pressuring everyone else to, cut off Russia, don't accept their stuff, but yet here we are.
Yeah, it's kind of funny too, because yesterday a big thing was the Mondelez CEO saying there's no real moral concern to stop selling our products in Russia, and then everyone made an outrage over that. And then at the same time that day, at least at that point in time, Latvia was still importing limited numbers of Russian grain and actually purchasing it from the Russians. It's like it's a little bit odd, but I got to say it's a good move today. But it is a little weird that they were continuously buying grain from the Russians, even as they are facing them down across the border and fearful of a Russian invasion pretty much throughout most of the war. But I guess this is
Speaking of that Mondelez story you're talking about, the Mondelez fella, the CEO, said that according to the Spectator Index on Twitter, that investors do not morally care whether companies continue to do business in Russia. Well, I tell that to all the other companies that have left Russia in mass because of the morals of the situation. Obviously, if they cared only about money, they would have stayed. So, you can't make heads or tails of like what that guy's even saying at this point.
Yeah, I can't either. That's why I was like, whatever. Like, I saw that earlier, I said, no big deal. But one thing I gotta say, though, is that that's not really out of line for chocolate companies, because chocolate companies, man, are freaking brutal. Like Nestle, dude, Nestle is a murder. Like, Nestle is truly like a cartel, pretty much. Chocolate companies are pretty freaking whack, I'm not gonna lie. And Mondelez isn't really just a chocolate company. They also own Kraft and a whole bunch of other companies like that. But still, one of their major companies, well, some of their most major companies are actually chocolates companies. And it's pretty wild to see them still carrying on that cartel-like mindset in the chocolate world. If y'all ever want to hear something interesting, just look into the history of most chocolate companies like Hershey's, because I mean, like, it's actually insane. Like, now, their company town in Hershey's, Pennsylvania, is actually kind of cool, and they actually were pretty good to their workers in America. But to the chocolate harvesters in places like South America, oh, buddy, they were brutal. I mean, really brutal. But beyond that, we're going to be moving on from that little bit of news. But hey, on a bright side, though, with Latvia, at least with Latvia completely banning Russian and Belarusian imports of grain, maybe that will give the Ukrainian grain market to fill a hole with. Maybe they'll be able to fill the hole in Latvia's grain imports now with Ukrainian grain, maybe. And that's a place that the Ukrainian grain could end up being useful. But at the same time, while, of course, we're all talking about grains, and grains are, of course, a vital part of every meal, and also a large part of every American's diet, which actually leads to a decent amount of obesity here in the United States, we also got to hear that the British are apparently going to be adding a little bit of grain to the Ukrainian diet, as they're going to be sending 200 more brimstone missiles to the Ukrainian armed forces. That's actually a very large amount. The brimstone is largely a British version of the Hellfire missile, is the best way to explain it. It is a pretty heavy hitter. Pretty much if this thing hits a tank on any side, that tank is now completely destroyed. It is a very good missile. The Ukrainians did get an okay amount of these earlier in the war, and they proved to be wildly effective. The Ukrainians got a taste for these things. They never really got them again, but now the British are saying that they're going to send another 200 more of these things, and this will give the Ukrainians pretty much another 200 kills that they can complete on Russian tanks inside of Ukraine. So hopefully we'll get to see that very soon, but great to hear that the British are still continuing to try and send vital support to Ukraine that will help to give them an edge over the Russians inside of Ukraine. Moving on from that news and all the way down into Odessa, it's very important that while we see Western support continue and some Western support kind of trickle or falter, at least for the short while, we can also see that near Odessa, there is still Western support that is inside of Ukraine, and always important to remember when seeing what Ukraine is doing. This is an interestingly painted Gepard. Someone painted this thing like an army toy, just army green, which is pretty cool. I'm not going to lie, I kind of like it. But this is a Gepard that was spotted near the outskirts of Odessa and already had been able to claim something like 4 Shahed 136s to its kill count. Of course, the Gepard is a German-provided self-propelled anti-air gun. These things were retired out of service in the mid-2010s, and of course they're now being pulled back out of service by the German army, now seeing that they're effective against drones, and drones are a large part of modern warfare, and a decent amount of them were also sent to Ukraine as well. From what we also understand, the Germans have been able to find a way to supply the Ukrainians with the 30mm Oerlikon shells that would be needed to make sure that this thing is usable. They were able to find a way to purchase them from the Swiss, and they were also able to find a way to open up some Oerlikon factories to be able to produce that 30mm ammunition that the Gepard needs to use. So, of course, overall, really nice to hear and good to see that Western support continues to help keep the skies of Ukraine safe, among many other things. But moving on from that little bit of news inside of Odessa, we're going to be moving on into our location unknowns. We don't have that many of them today. We only have about 2 or 3 of them, but nevertheless, while all of this is going on inside of Ukraine, we do have to remember that there is still a major threat outside of Ukraine in the form of that Russian rocket. That's, of course, leading to massive tensions and maybe the reason why many Western officials believe that war will begin soon, and they're telling the citizenry in most of their home countries to prepare for that upcoming war. A lot of people have different ideas on what the Russians are going to do in response to the U.S. warnings and threats that were made today about their upcoming violations of the orbital treaties. But beyond that, Matthew, it looks like you've had an interesting take on this, and it looks like a lot of people also have an interesting take on this as well.
Yes, we have. We asked the audience, what do you think? Do you think Russia will actually listen to the United States warnings not to launch the space nuke, or will they do it anyways? It looks like the majority of people believe that Russia will not listen at all. And a small percentage of people believe that Russia will actually listen to the threats. And in my opinion, I don't think Russia has any incentive to listen whatsoever, because unless the United States is ready to launch nukes at Russia over the situation, there's really not much else the United States can do to prevent it. Russia really honestly has the upper hand in the situation, which is why we should have never allowed them to develop that in the first place. Or if we did allow them to develop it, we should have a plan in place to destroy it or disable it before it gets launched into orbit. But as of right now, it sounds like we really don't have a plan for that because we're panicking and we're freaking out. And if we sort of had that under wraps, we wouldn't be going so berserk over here in our intel community. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say the Russians may not listen at all, and I have a feeling that they're probably going to not listen unless we do something big. They'll probably say, we won't launch the rocket if you lift some sanctions, and they're going to be a select amount of sanctions that would allow them to continue to produce weapons with with a high degree of relative ease. That's probably going to be something that they're looking for. That's probably the only way that they'll try and listen at all. But beyond that, it is going to be very tough to try and get the Russians to stop this launch. There really is no way that we can do it. To explain why I believe there's no way that we can really stop them from launching this thing within our abilities is that the Russians launched their rockets out of Baikonur Cosmodrome inside of Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan is largely a Russian-aligned country in the middle of Central Asia. It would be very tough for us to get there or do anything to Kazakhstan to stop them from launching this rocket. And on top of that, the Russians are producing this weapon, or they're just going to take an ICBM to the launch pad inside the Russian Federation. So going off of all of that, it'd be very tough for us to try and stop what's happening inside of Russia with the nuke weapon. So there's really no reason that they need to listen to us, and there's really no way that we can kind of force a diplomatic incident to get them into the negotiating table to stop them from doing that either, because all of this is being conducted within their borders and also the borders of another country that we really have no good way of reaching, at least quickly or efficiently, to stop this from happening. So going off of that, I would have to say, unfortunately, they're probably not going to listen, and that's going to really force our hand to do some drastic actions or measures to stop this nuke from going into space. There's not really a lot that I could think of. And also, the reason why I believe, unlike other instances, the United States will probably act very harshly and swiftly on this specific matter is that satellite communications are one of the most important things that gives the U.S. a cutting edge amongst many other countries, and also gives us a massive strategic advantage. If we don't try and stop this nuclear weapon from being sent into space, and it does explode up there at some point, it could knock out all vital strategic communications networks and lines that the United States has in space. It could greatly decrease our response time. It could also cause a massive amount of confusion. It could also cause a massive amount of economic backlash and turmoil as well in the United States. It could end up being a terrible thing overall. Probably one of the most concerning things that we've heard about that is so easy for the Russians to do. And also, I've seen some people have been saying this on Twitter, and I have to address some things said on Twitter because I don't know if people just don't know anything and they're working off of a lack of knowledge or something, but I've seen some weird statements. People are going, yesterday the news was telling me that the Russians were losing in Ukraine and they're a backwards country that's using 50, 60-year-old technology. And now today they're telling me that they're launching space nukes. Where in the world's the discrepancy there, guys? Trying to make it sound like the news is lying to folks, but The thing is that launching a nuke into space comes default with your ICBM. A lot of people don't know that, but when an ICBM is launched at a target thousands of miles away, say like Russia, it actually goes into a suborbital trajectory. It actually leaves the Earth's atmosphere and goes into space, and it comes back down on the other side of the world. That's how an ICBM works. So the technology has been there for nearly 50 to 60 years. This actually isn't anything new at all. And it's well within the Russians' abilities to just launch this thing on a Vostok and then just send it into orbit and just wait for the time they want to blow the thing up. It's not out of the question to do that at all. And it's kind of funny to me that people are saying because they can launch a nuke into space that apparently they must be some kind of a rapidly advanced country, way more advanced than the United States could ever comprehend, which is pretty silly because, you know, people have been putting stuff into orbit since 1957, so it's not really like that's a brand new breaking edge technology. I mean, hell, we sit there and we send space telescopes up into space on a whim. I mean, right now we're building, of course, the U.S. government, but subsidizing it, but at the same time, it's largely SpaceX privately doing it with other companies investing in it. But we're launching a massive network of satellites to create an internet connection that can be accessed anywhere in the world. I mean,
and also, we did just land a probe of some sort on the moon today. You heard about that, didn't you?
I did hear about that. And we do all these things here in America, and no one bats an eye because it's just considered normal in America for us to be launching stuff into orbit or even launching stuff that'll land on another planet, like a rover on Mars or a probe on the moon that will be helping out the Artemis mission, all kinds of crap like that. But then the Russians go and take probably a low-weight nuclear weapon into Earth's orbit, and then people on Twitter want to act like it's some kind of a rapid advancement, like the Russians are way ahead of this at this point. And I just don't get
They're
where
just absolutely fear-mongering, man. Absolutely fear-mongering. But real quick, I have to bring something up because I'm seeing a ton of people bring this up in the live chat as well. Folks have been wanting me to check into a B-1B Lancer, which is allegedly flying over the Baltic Sea right now. And I was tracking it on Flight Radar 24, and I saw some wondering if the thing was heading to St. Petersburg in Russia, and I can assure you it is not. It is actually going to be landing in Stockholm, Sweden, and I'm really not sure where it came from. It turned on its transponder right above Scotland, and there was no tracking data before that, so it must have been flying stealth before it got into that region. But it is definitely going to Stockholm, and it must be on some kind of training mission of some sort.
Yeah, it's probably so. I haven't actually been hearing a lot about that. But usually, the U.S. Air Force, especially when conducting something sensitive, they usually don't turn the transponders on or they turn them off before they make it to the sensitive area. But the B-1 Lancer, actually, interestingly enough, is not a stealth aircraft. A lot of people actually have a misnomer that the B-1 Lancer is stealth because of its wonky-looking design and shape, but it actually is not stealth at all. The design of the B-1 Lancer uses a sweep wing, so that way it can fly at close to supersonic speeds, but, nevertheless not supersonic, almost above treetop level, and once it starts making it very close to its target, it'll lift up and then drop its bombs and then hit the deck again, hit supersonic, and get the hell out of there. It's actually a really interesting design, and it's something that a lot of bomber aircraft don't really implement today. It's actually considered a little bit backwards because flying low altitude bombing missions in a strategic bomber is actually pretty bizarre, and nobody really thinks of using that tactic anymore. A lot of people believe that modern strategic bombers and the doctrine revolving around them pretty much means that they turn into airborne cruise and ballistic missile launchers for the most part. But what's interesting is that the best Russian aircraft, or the best strategic bomber that the Russians are able to possess at the moment, is the Tu-160, which the best way I can describe this thing is it's literally just a Soviet ripoff of the B-1 Lancer.
Yeah, it looks pretty close.
But I'm actually going to blow everyone away because it's not a ripoff. This thing is actually a completely different design process that went behind it. And the B-1 Lancer and the Tu-160 were being designed on two separate sides of the world simultaneously without either knowing of the other. And so when they both finally went into service, both sides were like, hey, I think that guy just stole our homework, and neither of them knew about the other aircraft until it was finally test flown and people finally got to see it publicly, which is a really wild story to share about the Tu-160 and the B-1 Lancer, because they look so similar. You would think that the Soviets probably ripped off the American design, or the Americans ripped off the Soviet design, but funnily enough, neither of them did. They just ended up looking very similar because the requirements for this aircraft, because both of them kind of end up conducting the same bombing missions, they kind of ended up just with a very similar looking aircraft. But still, with that, I hope that kind of gives y'all a little cool background on some aircraft development of like the 70s and the 80s, which was when both of those things were being designed and produced. But moving on from that, it is time for us to get on into the rest of these location unknowns outside of the massive threat that is currently going on in between the United States and Russia. And we got to see one of the few pictures ever of a Black Hornet drone being used in Ukraine. This thing is a little micro drone. You can see it's smaller than this operator's hand. But nevertheless, it does provide vital recon and information for these Ukrainian soldiers on the ground, although we have never, hardly ever, seen one of these things in Ukraine. We know that they're there, it's just that nobody really talks about them, mentions them much, or takes pictures of them. But we finally got to see one today, and it looks like it's also being used by the Special Forces operators of Ukraine, according to the caption. But nevertheless,
I haven't seen those in use either, and I've been watching for all the different types of drones for a long time. But with this specific one, I've heard reports that this thing can be flying like 5 or 10 feet over your head, and you can't even hear it. It's that quiet somehow. I don't know if that's true or not, because I haven't seen a video of one actually operating. But if that is true, and don't make any mistake, these things are expensive as hell. But if that's true, that's definitely worth it.
I would say that's really worth it. Imagine the kind of recon that you can do without being detected with this thing right here, or without the drone possibly being shot down. It might be really expensive, but because it's so small and so quiet, chances are no one's really going to see it unless if it's moving really quickly, really close to you. Because also, another cool thing is that usually you can disguise things to the naked eye, the naked human eye, by not moving. It's something of a joke in the dinosaur world, where people are kind of interested in dinosaurs, that if you don't move, the dinosaur can't notice you. But oddly enough, the image receptors of human males actually operate very much similarly. Males have a harder time noticing still non-moving objects than they do moving objects, which is really interesting. And apparently that's also the concept that started to work behind the earliest iterations of camouflage, is that if a soldier is wearing a 2-tone or a 3-tone camouflage compared to a 1-tone color uniform, then he would be harder to see as long as he's not moving. Because if he's moving, then the form is actually differentiated from the background, and it could be easily identified and spotted with the naked human eye. But still, really interesting stuff going in about human physiology and how it works, and also how modern military technology tries to work around that a little bit by making this thing as small and quiet as possible, so that way you'll very rarely ever be able to look in the direction of it, where if it is on the move, you'll ever see it. But anyways, moving on from all of that, just hopefully sharing some cool facts and info. If y'all like that, subscribe. But anyways, moving on from the Black Hornet drone and into our next clip, we also got to see the rarest sighting ever. Ukraine only has one of these Black Hawks, and it's actually a civilian-provided Black Hawk, so it's like a SH-60, not a UH-60 from what I understand. But nevertheless, it is sporting the Ukrainian colors, and we can see it being used by the Defense Intelligence of Ukraine. Really cool.
Oh wow, he's landing on one wheel right there.
Yeah,
he's trying to turn into the Crash Hawk.
Man, this thing is about to be Black Hawk down right here. But anyways, dude, I gotta say, man, this thing is just so cool. I absolutely love the design of the Black Hawk. It's probably the coolest looking transport in the world.
It is cool, I gotta say. I really hate to hear that recently they've been having some issues. Like, that's why the soldiers are nicknaming them the Crash Hawks, because they've been crashing quite a bit lately. But maybe they've gotten some stable ones here, and they're going to be okay with them.
Hopefully so. But I mean, here's the reason why they're crashing. Let me go pull this up. The Black Hawk. Here we go. The UH-60 Black Hawk. This thing was introduced into service with the U.S. military in 1979. A lot of these helicopters have been flying for nearly 44 years at this point. 45 years. They are getting incredibly old. And so that's probably why a lot of them are starting to crash, is that they're just such an old helicopter at this point that they're kind of reaching the end of their service life, and they're just ending up having critical failures because there's only so much maintenance you can put in these things until they start crashing. And that also lines up exactly at the right time with the U.S. military, specifically the U.S. Army, conducting a bid to see what new helicopter is going to be replacing the Black Hawks. And we already know that it's the Bell... what is it, Matthew? It's like the Bell something. It's pretty odd looking, but
The new like experimental Bell helicopter for the military.
Yeah, it's like a Bell tilt rotor. Let me go see Bell tilt rotor. And let's see.
It was like made with Honeywell too, wasn't it?
Here we go. I found it. It's the Bell 280 Valor. Let's see if it was made with Honeywell. Let's see. I'm not seeing anything up here about Bell working with Honeywell, at least at the moment. But let's see here if it says anything down here. Not seeing it here either, but the main company that is producing it is the Bell Company, which of course created the famous Bell Huey. But this is going to be, at the moment, the new kind of transport that's going to be moving the Army around on the field, the Bell 280. There was actually...
Looks like just an Osprey, basically, like an upgraded one.
Dude, this thing looks like a whack lizard Osprey. Like, it's like really thin and really narrow looking. But I hate, dude, that the Sikorsky bid, Sikorsky S-76, I think it was. Nope, that's not it. That's the one that Colleen Emsley flies. The S-92? Dang, man, I can't find it. The Sikorsky Army helicopter. Let me go see if they have it here. Dagnabbit, they're not going to show it to us. Man, oh, wait, here it is. The Raider X. There we go. That's what it is. Let me go type that in. Raider X. I gotta be honest, just for cool factor, I hate that the Raider X lost. Let me go see if I can find an actual... Well, I mean, damn, that's not it either. Well, wait a minute. No, it is. That's it right there. I hate that the Sikorsky Raider X lost because it looked cool. Like, it was really cool.
Yeah, that was sick, man. Like, I hate that loss because I would love to have seen that actually in service.
And here's an actual picture of a real Raider X. I think this was the prototype that was made for the bid.
It's like one of those little mini drone things we just saw, like the Ukrainians getting. It's like that, but a big helicopter version.
Yeah, I mean, it was so cool. Look, it has a dual rotor design. It has a pusher propeller. I mean, this thing was like the modern predecessor of the AH-56 Cheyenne. And sadly, it lost a bit because it wasn't what the Army was looking for. The Army said it kind of fell short in a couple of categories, which I hate to hear because it's the cooler looking of the two. Like, y'all can't deny, this thing just looked cool. And the Bell 280, yeah, it's neat, but it looks a lot like an Osprey, and the Osprey got a bad rap, especially at the beginning of it being introduced in the service, because it's a very complicated machine, and it had a decent amount of failures that ended up causing a lot of fatal crashes. But beyond that...
You know, I'm just curious, like on the money side of things, when one of these defense contractors are told to develop one of these helicopters, are they given the money up front to develop the thing, or do they develop it, then send it to approval for the military, and then they get the money for the contract?
So how the acquisitions work for the military is that the military will send out kind of like a general notice to all of the defense companies and say, if you produce helicopters, we're looking for a helicopter that can do A, B, C, and D. And then all of these companies go, I'm going to compete in the bid, or I'm not going to compete in the bid. And if they say they are, then they look at the requirements, and then they go, okay, let's get a design team together. Let's give them some money, and let's give them a budget to produce a prototype so that we can go in front of the Army testing board. And then all of the companies do that. They actually pay up front. The Army doesn't pay for them to come up with their prototypes. The companies have to pay out of their own pocket to do this.
Ooh.
And then all of them go to the Army bid, and then a whole bunch of companies start crying because they wasted loads of money on a project that was never going to be accepted by the Army or the military as a whole. And then one of them wins, and they hit pay dirt.
See, that's what I was wondering when I just asked that question, is I'm sure a load of money went into developing these different helicopters that didn't quite make the cut, and that, you know, that has to hurt the company. Like, I know they're not like peewee companies or something. They're pretty big, large, wealthy companies, but even at that, like, the money required to develop these things is monumental, I'd imagine.
Yeah, and oh my lord. I mean, if you ever look back in the day, some companies like North American, and it was so sad because back in the day when the F-15 was being put into service, to give you all a really cool story, there was actually a competitor to the F-15, which was like the North American, and let me go see, North American Y225 or something like that. Let's see here. North American F-15 bid. Let me go see if I can get it that way. Let's see. Dang it, I can't find it. So, to try and explain this without showing you all a picture, back when the F-15 was being introduced into service, McDonnell Douglas, which was the actual designer of the F-15, and North American were going through some economic rough times. Boeing was as well, but they weren't really going through that bad of a time. And so all of these companies were like chomping at the bits to go and try and get this F-15 contract. So North American was almost about to go defunct. If they did not win this bid, it was over for them. And so they designed this aircraft that initially outperformed the F-15 in every single way. And the Air Force loved the thing. They wanted it a whole load. And then they said, all right, so now that you designed this thing and it's just amazing and it beats McDonnell Douglas's F-15, YF-15 by massive margins, how much would it cost to make this thing? And then North American said, well, we're almost broke. So if you give us like hundreds and hundreds of millions of billions of dollars even, we'll be able to build a new factory that will produce these things. And then the military, the Air Force went, you know what, actually McDonnell Douglas's F-15 looks pretty good because it's like a third of the cost. And then North American went, we just wasted all of this money making this amazing aircraft that beats out the competition so freaking well, and they're not going to take his business way over budget. And then North America literally collapsed and went bankrupt and went defunct, which is so sad because North American actually made some of the most famous jet fighter aircraft of the early and mid-Cold War in history. Like the F-86 Sabre, that was a North American design. But they went defunct after they lost the F-15 bid and McDonnell Douglas got it. And then McDonnell Douglas got merged with Boeing not that much farther down the line. It was just a few years later, and that's why Boeing has that weird like circle with a triangle logo attached to theirs, because that was actually the logo for McDonnell Douglas, and that was their logo after they merged. But anyways, I'm giving y'all a whole bunch of aviation history that does not matter, but maybe y'all find it interesting. But nevertheless, getting back to the Black Hawk, which started all this is a really cool helicopter, and while this may be the only one in Ukrainian service, it is really cool to see that they were able to use this one. And, of course, for the defense intelligence of Ukraine. Really neat. But, with that, it is time for us to move on to this last little bit of Location Unknown news before we move on into the front lines of Ukraine, which tells us that the Russians are doing badly again today. Ooh!
Oh
8
my
Bobcats.
goodness, man. Huge losses again. Wonderful Bobcat losses. 8, I gotta tell you, it warms my heart to see it. But the other losses are tremendous as well. Like 63 vehicles and 7 tanks. That's a massive on its own.
Yeah, I mean, that is huge. Like, the losses are unbelievable today. And 8 Bobcat skid steers were lost. 1,160 Russian soldiers were wiped out off the face of the earth. 35 armored personnel carriers were also destroyed, along with 63 supply trucks, 7 main battle tanks, 41 artillery pieces, 36 drones, 5 MLRSs. The Su-34 that got shot down yesterday was included in today's report. 2 anti-aircraft warfare systems were also destroyed, and overall, it was just a really good day. I mean, it was amazing. It was just an unbelievably good day for the Ukrainians. They have been conducting an amazing defense, and not only that, they are going to certainly be having their hands full racking up the casualty numbers in the Northeast, because there's major news coming out of this area today. And funnily enough, it is probably going to be the next major battle of the war in Ukraine. And it's not going to be for a single city. It looks like this may even be much larger than a single city. But before we get to that, I want to make sure that we address some of the super chats that have been thrown in already tonight before we get into this news. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so first up from our super chats, we have a very generous $30 donation from Margaret Hemsley, who's obviously a long-time channel legend, and thank you very much, Margaret, as always, for that support. And she says, you both sound so much happier focusing on this channel, and I'm glad for you. And will the West, knowing the history of the Holocaust, allow Russia to take Ukrainians to gulags? And first off, thank you very much, Margaret. I would like to think we do sound a bit happier because we've gotten a huge, massive load off our backs that we really didn't want to take on. So I got to tell you, I am feeling much happier, and we're devoting all of our time to the channel now. So we're getting a ton of projects going in the background that will take some work. So it's going to take some time to finalize them and get them wrapped up before we present them to y'all. But I'm glad for us, and thank you for being glad for us as well. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I thank you so much for being so happy for us, Margaret. I feel way better. I mean, I feel so happy that we're able to really focus on what my passion is. I did not really have a passion for law school. I tried so hard, and then I was just like, I don't like it. And so I'm very happy that I learned that early on instead of going all the way through law school, you know, getting in massive, unbelievable amounts of debt and then going, you know what, I don't really like it. But then it would have been way too late to make that decision. So I'm very happy that I found that out now, made the decision now. And also, I hope that we sound way more happy, because we have a lot of reason to be way more happy. Like, the weight of worlds is off of our shoulders. Now it's just the weight of the world, but it's not the weight of worlds that's on our shoulders. So I'm really happy about that. And also, thank you so much for being here tonight, Margaret. It is wonderful to know that our Lee Spring Army viewer from Western Australia is here with us tonight, and of course, enjoying the channel again. It means so much to us, and I got to thank you once again for being one of those amazing people in the Lee Spring Army. And I'd also have to say, to address your question, I want to make sure to address this last because it's the more serious of the more serious part of the super chat. I would have to say that I hope that we wouldn't let something like that happen. I would hope that people would have learned from history. But the one thing I've learned by studying history is that nobody really learns from history, because every generation steps forward and acts like they are far smarter and far more intelligent than the last. And the truth is that people are as smart now as their ancestors were way back hundreds and thousands of years ago. It's just that our ancestors didn't have the kind of technology that we have today that makes us look so much more impressive and grand on an intelligence level compared to them. Like right now, I can't really talk about this much because YouTube doesn't really like this topic, but right now we are actually kind of benevolently allowing a very similar kind of a fate of the Holocaust happen inside of Western China, and I can't really say much more than that because YouTube for some reason has a bit of an issue with people talking about that in great depth, but we allow that to go by, and we still have massive economic relations with the Chinese, and in fact we even let them largely try and sway the public's mind inside the United States along with the Russians, and that's something that kind of shows me nobody really learns from anything. And people will bring it up. People will bring up what's going on in Western China here and there. But it's almost like the category that falls in the public's mind is almost like the far out conspiracy theorist kind of mindset when people talk about what's going on in Western China. And it shows me that it's the same kind of mindset that a lot of Americans had in the late 30s and the very early 40s before we got into World War II, when people were hearing about the concentration camps in Germany and everyone just went, maybe they're not bad people. Maybe the Nazis aren't that bad. Maybe they're just doing what they think is best. And that's what a lot of people say about China these days too. They go, you know what? China might be authoritarian, but maybe they're doing what's best. At least the groceries are cheap. That's what everyone always says. You can commit heinous crimes as long as the groceries are cheap. It's like the same thing with Klondike bars. You can do anything for a Klondike bar, and everyone will excuse it. But I just see from what I see, people don't really learn from history a lot, and humanity is kind of largely doomed to make the same mistakes over and over and over without really changing them much, because everyone always acts like the situation's different now.
If you could tell anyone, if you could go back and stop Hitler and preemptively stop him from going absolutely ham and invading basically the entire world, would you do it? And most people would say, yeah, of course we would. And, the same situation is presenting itself right now with Russia. They're attacking Ukraine. But the reason why nobody will actually step in and stop it, like many people would have done if they could go back and stop Hitler, is because everyone hopes that maybe Russia really won't be that crazy and go on beyond Ukraine. But in reality, we all know in the back of our minds that if Putin could get that done, and he has the capabilities and the soldiers and the equipment to do it, he would move on beyond Ukraine. And that's why everyone knows the battle in Ukraine is so important, because we have to deter him. But, it's just those type things that where history repeats itself, and people really just don't have the will to really jump into the fire and stop it now. And that's basically what's happening.
I would have to say, I believe it's more so that people lack the gumption to actually do something about issues, because look at the similarities in between World War I, World War II, and today. In World War I, and I'm talking about from an American perspective, so this doesn't really apply to Australia, Margaret, because Australia joined World War I from the very onset, because it was a part of the British Empire. But still, for America, going into the First World War, World War I broke out. People like Teddy Roosevelt were actually saying that we should get involved in the war right away, and in fact was saying that he would join the American army to go fight in the trenches of Western Europe in the support of the French and the British. And the United States then said, nah, you know what, maybe it can pass over, that's not our problem, that's their problem over over there, and as long as it keeps their problem over there, we'll be fine, and nothing will ever affect us, and nothing will ever cause us any problems. And then it ended up causing us problems, and then we had to go get involved anyways. And there's a pretty good argument to be said that if the United States was not a neutral country up until late 1917, there was probably a really good chance that the Germans would have probably lost the war by late 1916, early 1917, because the Germans, a lot like the British and everyone else, were being supported a good bit by the United States. Because everyone could buy and everyone could do business with the United States. We were we were like the mega-sized Switzerland for 3 years throughout the course of World War I until we finally joined the war in 1917. In World War II, we kind of dealt with a similar mindset. We saw the rise of the Nazis from 1932 to 1939. Saw time and time again the Germans do the same thing. They would say, we just want a little piece of this. We're not going to go further than that if we get it. So just give it to us and everything will be good. And then the British and the French, of course, with the same kind of mindset as America at that point, went, you know what, sure, maybe if we just, let the Germans do what they want, maybe it'll go away. And then the Germans Anschlussed Austria, they got the Sudetenland, then they annexed the rest of the modern-day Czech Republic and created a puppet state out of Slovakia. And then finally, the Germans invaded Poland, and then the British and French went to war with the Germans. And then the Soviets also invaded the other part of Poland. And then even then, a lot of Americans over here said, that's not our problem. That's over there. It'll never affect us. We'll never have to get involved as long as we keep out of it. The Germans might actually be the good guys in the war, but we don't know. And people said that kind of stuff. And then eventually...
The Russians are doing basically the same thing, too. They have these separatists go in and try to take parts of Ukraine back in 2014. Then they have people go in and take Crimea. And now they have them attacking the entire country of Ukraine. And it's like, it's not going to stop there. We know it's not, because they've done this over since 2014 at least. And why would they suddenly stop? It's like they're not.
And they won't. They never will. And that's the thing. As long as people kind of sit idly by and don't put their foot down heavily on something, it's not going to end well. It's not going to do good. And that's something that I have to say, Margaret, like as far as people not learning about history, there are 3 instances now where people, specifically in the United States, said and did the same things leading up to each major conflict, and none of them learned from the last group, even when it's clear that we're going down that path now. And that's why I'll sadly say I don't think the United States is going to learn from the past and know that it would be best to stop this up front. We would probably, I'm going to be honest with what would really happen if the Russians started to put Ukrainians in concentration camps. They would put them in the camps. We kind of know about it here in America. We wouldn't do anything. And then if a war broke out, then we would start, maybe steamrolling the Russians or run up on one of these camps and then go, oh my God, the humanity. Who the hell let this happen? Because that's what we did in World War II. And I think we'll do it again, because people don't really think that way. I don't think people ever will think that way. So sadly, it's kind of an unfortunate reality of history that this kind of stuff will probably happen again and again and again and again. And
also, even if it came down to the United States having to directly fight Russia, if they did move on beyond Ukraine, in my opinion, that would almost certainly lead, at least in my mind, to a world war situation, because China is sitting over there quietly, patiently waiting to see what happens in Ukraine. They're studying this entire situation and seeing how the West is reacting as the Russians continue their invasion. And if they see for a minute that the United States and Russia are about to get tangled up in a fight, and we do, I can feel like very confident in saying that China will move on Taiwan at that point, because they want it, but they're waiting for the opportune moment when we're distracted and we're occupied with something else, because they'll know that we really can't respond the way we would have normally because our resources are now tied up.
I will say that I'll have to agree with that completely. They probably are waiting for an opportune time like that. But I hope that does address the question, Margaret. And I hate to answer questions in a negative way like that, because I'd always like to say that the West would be smart enough, America would be smart enough to not let things like that happen. But the reality is that that kind of intelligence is something that a lot of people don't possess until it's unfortunately too late. And then we look back at the tragedy that happened and then we go, we should have been smart enough to see this coming and not let that happen. And we'll never let that happen again. And then by the time it starts to happen again, we've gotten over the atrocities that we saw last time. And then we go, well, hopefully pray to God it won't happen again. And then it does. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And thank you so much for the support, Margaret. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat goes to Marius Holton, who throws in a $30 donation. And thank you very much, Marius, for that support
Hey!
as well. He says, those drones were scold Donald by Norway. It's time to take a hard stance against Russia. Insignia sucks.
And thank you so much for the support, Marius. And also, let's see. Those drones weren't schooled Donald by Norway. I don't know what that part means, sadly, but
I don't either, really. I was wondering. I was like, am I reading that wrong, or am I like interpreting it weird or something?
I had to read that because I was like, maybe it'll make sense when I read. Sadly, I don't know what the context behind it is. So if you want to share that with us, Marius, feel more than free to do that. We will circle back and address that again. But I would certainly have to agree with this, with the idea that it's time to take a hard stance against Russia. I think it's going to be more than just sanctions and more than support to Ukraine that we need to do. I honestly believe that at this point we maybe need to start nearly forcing an armed conflict with the Russians to force a diplomatic incident. Now, a lot of people don't get this because a lot of people think that when you start to force an armed, a situation that may create an armed conflict, that means you're a war hawk and a warmonger. The idea of creating an incident that may lead to war largely is a play to try and get to the diplomatic table and have concessions made. And usually those concessions favor the aggressor. So that's why I'm always kind of advocating that we shouldn't sit by and just try and talk things out. We should use the overwhelming weight of the military that the United States has, the largest and most powerful and most well-funded military across the entire planet, against other countries so that way we can force them into a diplomatic incident and then get the concessions that we need. Of course, they'll get a little bit out of those concessions because, there's got to be a little bit of give. But at the same time, we'll get most of what we want. And that's the most important thing. I think, let's see, and Don Raymond said, no need to force anything, let them make their own mistakes. Well, yeah, but we were actually just talking, Don, with Margaret, about how in history, we let people make their own mistakes, and then we have to deal with the consequences of their mistakes, like the Nazis, or like the Imperial Germans of World War I. We had to end up dealing with them, and I think it's better for us to deal with those situations up front than it is to try and sit back and let this just pass or pray to God that it passes, because the truth is it's not. The dominoes are already tipping. The wheels are already in motion. This is already moving to its inevitable end. It's either that we deal with it now and we try and stop it, or we deal with the absolute worst scenario, which is that this thing runs its entire course and we are forced to get involved in some way, shape, or form. And I see some people agreeing and disagreeing with that. I mean, maybe it's not the perfect solution, but historically, the trend shows that sitting by and just hoping that they fall apart, that's a bad idea. And it usually ends up to us having to lose many more American lives and many more Allied lives in faraway lands than they ever needed to be. So with that, I hope that does address that part of the Super Chat well, Marius. And also, insignia sucks. I don't know what that means. I don't know what the context is behind that. I don't know if you're talking about our eagle that we showed on stream for the flag, or something like that. We are working on it. We're actually getting a brand new one. And a lot of people have been saying that insignia should include a leaf spring in it. And the new design does. And I think it does it classfully, because the thing about putting a leaf spring into a design is that most of the time it was never classily done. It was kind of just like thrown in somewhere to make it fit. But the design that we have now actually is very classy and actually fits in the leaf spring in a way that looks incredibly good, and it really works with the rest of what the symbol is. So hopefully y'all be seeing that soon. If that's what you're talking about, hopefully it will suck less and hopefully you'll like it more. But nevertheless, thank you so much once again for support, Marius. I hope that does address that well. And of course, it is absolutely wonderful to know that you're one of our Norwegian viewers. And with that, we are on to the final question of this question segment, and then we're going to be moving back into the news.
And the final one goes to Norman Ozen, who throws in a $20 donation and does not leave a comment, sadly. But thank you very much, Norman, for that support. He threw in a very nice super sticker that, unfortunately, I was about to click and find out what it was, but let me see if I can see it.
Thanks
go
for
to the new little option here. Thanks for being you. Yeah, there it is right there. It's the YouTube pair staring at itself in the mirror. It's a narcissist, I'm telling you. But thank you very much, Norman, for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
Oh man, that thing really is a narcissist, man. That thing is straight up like Michael Jackson or something like that. It's like,
Man, it loves itself.
Shimon. But still, thank you so much for the support, Norman. And thank you for your 5th super chat ever to the channel. Also, thank you for throwing in such a cool super sticker. We love that one. I think it's one of the greatest. And also, thank you for being here for such a long time, Norman. It means a lot to us that you're still here with us and you're still enjoying and appreciating the channel enough that you find it worthwhile to support. You're a legend, Norman, along with many other people here in the Lee Spring Army, and we thank you, much like everyone else, for your continued support and helping this channel to keep on rolling. And so, I hope we addressed that well, and it's time for us to move on into the Northeastern Front, because we got big news today from the Institute for the Study of War that apparently the Russians are beginning their brand new offensive that we've known about in the Northeast. We've actually mentioned this very briefly in passing on this channel, that there was a heavy buildup of around a 40,000 strong force in the northeastern area, and it appeared that the Russians were planning on creating a new offensive campaign in the Northeast once the Battle of Avdiivka ended. As soon as the Battle of Avdiivka ended, it now seems that this offensive is beginning, according to the Institute for the Study of War. Russian forces are conducting a cohesive, multi-axis offensive operation in the Kharkiv-Luhansk sector in pursuit of an operationally significant objective for nearly the first time in over a year and a half of campaigning in Ukraine. And that really culminates into trying to retake the land that the Ukrainians curb stomped out of Russian control back in the later part of 2022. From what we're seeing, the Russians are using a few select combined arms armies to try and advance on important axes along this front line. The 1st Guards Tank Army and the 6th Combined Arms Army are most likely going to be attempting an encirclement of the city of Kupiansk. Meanwhile, the 20th Guards Combined Arms Army and the 3rd Motorized Rifle Division will be attempting to push forward and capture the area in between Kupiansk and Izium, or more so Lyman, that borders the Seversky Donets River and its reservoir that exists in this part of the Kharkiv Oblast. At the exact same time, the 144th Guards Motorized Rifle Division, also heavily supported by the Russian Spetsnaz, will be attempting to push against the 12th Azov Brigade and try and make its way towards Izium and Lyman respectively. Pretty much an attempt to try and retake all of the land that Ukraine took from the Russians in about 72 hours, almost over a year and a half ago. Going off of all of this, it does seem to me that the Russians are trying to at least regain lost glory, but it's kind of a little pitiful when you think about it, that their attempt to try and regain lost glory is just retaking the ground that they once controlled that the Ukrainians beat from them. I mean, the Ukrainians slaughtered the Russians in the Northeast way back when. I was actually looking at that stream today. It was on September 11th. And funnily enough, it was 9/11 of 2022 that offensive began, and already within hours, the Ukrainians had advanced from their front line and into the town of Balaklia and then Izium, and then all the way 3 days later past Kupiansk. I mean, that was a huge move when you think about it in such a short amount of time. About 53 miles east, the Ukrainian forces moved. And now the Russians are going to be trying to attempt to retake that probably over the course of an entire year's worth of fighting, even if they're able to make it just a few miles, maybe 1 mile or 2 miles in some directions. But with that, it is now time for us to move on into the only combat clips that we got from the Northeast. We got to see that the Ukrainians were clearing some Russian trenches in this area, and this was pretty interesting stuff, because we rarely ever see up-close fighting happening in this part of the front line. But the rock music is going strong.
Oh, yeah.
And the Ukrainians are giving the Russians the gas. And when I mean the gas, they're giving them nades.
Man, this forest has been turned into Lincoln logs at this point. There's no, like, leaves or anything anymore.
Man, I'll tell you, the forests of Ukraine have been devastated from the fighting. And when you see the Ukrainians still working on clearing the trench, well, you see one Russian apparently trying to beat out the fire with a stick.
Got to keep your home clean. You can't let it get dirty.
Dude, this guy's in there, oh, bled, man, I'm about to lose my only hit, bled. it's like, man, rip to the heart. Rip to, wait a minute.
Man, that's like if an explosive goes off in your building or something and the whole building gets demolished, but you go outside with your broom and your dustpan and start, like, wiping up a little glass on the ground. I'm like, oh, it's a little dirty out here.
Dude, this guy has that British Blitz mindset, like his whole entire house gets blown up above his head, and he comes out and goes, bit rainy today, isn't it? It's just like, dang, dude, it's like, what the hell's going on here? But anyways, moving on from that clip, it showed a pretty interesting little occurrence going on. We also got to see a M2 heavy machine gun crew moving through the snow in northern Ukraine. Also, by the way, AK-74, ooh, I like it.
Ooh.
And we see him moving one of the parts of the tripod. But you see this guy carrying the actual receiver of the Browning 50 cal, and we see this guy carrying the barrel. It actually usually takes a 5-man crew to move a 50 cal, and they probably do have a 5-man crew here because the 4th crew member is the cameraman. Also, I love to see the classic AK-74 right here with the wood furniture on it. We actually reviewed an AK-74 just like that here on this channel. You ought to check out the video because we actually went into a lot of detail about the AK-74.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug because it's such a good video.
It is quite good.
And hopefully we'll be making more, but I can't guarantee that at the moment. But if y'all want to see it, let us know. But anyways, with that, that's the end of the clip. When you see him setting up the 50 cal, really cool to see. And also, Dallas Borakua said, who's got the extra barrel? Probably guy number 4 who's filming. He's probably got the extra barrel. But still, moving on from that and out of this area of the front line and further south, all the way past the northeastern front and past Kremenna, although there is a good battle going on there right now. We're not getting a lot of video or picture evidence out of it, but we do know that the 12th Azov is still holding, and the 144th Combined Arms Army is not able to advance forward at the moment. But moving on from that and down into the area of Bakhmut, we also got to see that there was some action going on in this part of the front line. I'll be trying to bring y'all there, and hopefully the map has updated. And it has, and let's make sure to check that there's been no frontline changes in Bakhmut. There has been a frontline change. The Russians have moved forward into Ivanivsky, apparently. That looks like it was about a 400-meter advance, something of a bit of a larger one, especially in this area. But nevertheless, it does appear that the Ukrainians are holding the southern flank and northern flank incredibly well. But here near Chasiv Yar and Ivanivsky, it looks like the line may be having a bit of a rougher time. But moving on down to the southern flank, where all of our video footage of Bakhmut came today, we did get to see that a Russian armor push was destroyed. According to what the Ukrainians said, there were 15 Russian armored vehicles that pushed out of the southern end of Bakhmut near Opitny and tried to conduct a push on Klishkivka today, and all 15 vehicles ended up being destroyed almost as soon as they left Opitny. And here's the footage of the wreckage of these vehicles after the attack ended.
Добрий ранок, Україна, блядь.
Ukraine, блядь.
Долбоёбы.
It's a little stone.
Spokojnie noche, блядь. Oh, that one toasted out there.
БК хуяра, ебать.
Dude, call that thing a toaster strudel because it'd be roasting, you know what I mean? Or better,
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire.
or better yet, Matthew, that could be anything, Matthew. There's a lot of things that are crashing and burning right now out there. But this certainly is one of them. But moving on from so we're just gonna leave that at what it is. Y'all can pick up on the reference if you know what I mean. But moving on from that, we also got to hear really good news today. Y'all know that one of my personal favorite brigades in all of Ukraine is actually the 93rd, the famous fighting 93rd, the Kholodny Yar. And the Kholodny Yar, we finally were able to confirm today, has been given CV 9040s from Sweden, and they're now inside of the 93rd Division. We've seen these things way up in the northeast a good bit with some of the more quiet and lesser known brigades in that area of the line. But today, the 93rd put out their own pictures from southern Bakhmut showing that they do in fact have their own CV-90s. I love these things. I think they are the best looking armored personnel carrier out there in the entire world right now, and it's just great to know that they finally have some of these things. Hopefully it'll be helping the 93rd to continue on the fight in southern Bakhmut as best they can, and hopefully allow them to close the distance with the Russians in a much safer and more effective manner. But moving on from that, and into one of our last clips in southern Bakhmut, we also got to see the drones in this area hitting the Russians. These are from the Signum unit, which is the drone detachment of the fighting 93rd. Ever since the 3rd Brigade moved to Avdiivka about a week and a half ago, the 93rd has pretty much been carrying the entire southern flank of Bakhmut single-handedly. And here comes the
Did
drone.
you notice that? Did you notice that the Escadron's little unit, little like intro, was them hitting that flag that we saw like a while back?
Uh-huh.
Are they the unit responsible for that?
No. No.
Oh.
It was partisans.
I
that
guess
were
they're taking some
responsible for
like they're like symbolically taking responsibility for it. I guess.
that. Man, you know what the Signum is saying whenever they do that little intro? They go rent free, rent free.
Rent free. Oh man.
Oh man. Oh goodness. But that rent ain't free for him, you know what I mean? But anyways, we can see
No, it's costing big bucks.
costing big bucks. But anyway, we can see the FPV drone starting to chase down this Russian minivan.
I think the hot dog sales quota just went up for the month.
Yeah, I think it did.
Oh no.
Uh-oh. Oh no.
Row Raggy, van blow up. Oh no.
Like, Zoink Scoop, I don't think we have enough for rent. Ruh-roh Raggy, homeless. But anyway, so you can see the drone getting hit.
Row Raggy, bring out the relish.
Ruh-roh Raggy, manual labor. But anyways, we can see the minivan toasting down there. And that's the end of the clip. But we saw the Signum doing its work today as usual in the Fighting 93rd, once again representing all the Ukrainian forces in the southwestern part of Bakhmut. A massive deal. I love to see it. And of course, wonderful to know that the Ukrainians just continue to hammer the Russians in this area. But it's time for us to move on down to a part of the front lines that, of course, has been a point of heavy contention and discussion for many people. We got to see that over the past 24 hours, the Russians have in fact overtaken and pretty much captured Severny. It was a fairly quick movement. They actually moved across nearly 3 entire fields from Avdiivka forward, and it is showing that apparently one Russian unit does have the ability to push forward and take some ground. It does appear that the 47th Brigade is continuing to hold its part of the front and stop any Russian advance in this area, but this little move here is slightly concerning, although hopefully the Ukrainians will be able to stabilize. So we understand that the Ukrainian second line of defense goes from the area of Tenenke all the way up to Berdichi, and also it includes Stepove as a minor chain in the defense, but at the same time, the Russians have not made it completely to the second line of defense, or more so the barrier. But with that, we did get a lot of video footage today showing what Avdiivka looks like post-battle, and also showing us a little bit of the combat actions that were undertaken today. Moving on to our first bit of news in the Avdiivka coke plant, we got to see what it looks like. Tom Charles, of course we did. Of course we did. Everyone told us about it. And I thought it was funny. But anyways, and all like 3 people that were watching that show thought it was funny too. I was looking fly as hell. I'm not gonna lie, in that rep polo and everything. I mean, I was looking pretty good.
Yeah, I was about to say, you're looking dapper at that one.
But I'm telling you, one thing we haven't addressed yet is the ratings. The ratings are going down the tubes. They might as well go ahead and shut down that station now. Shut off your station because it's going downhill.
Listen, y'all, I'm going to be honest with y'all. If you cannot gain subscribers outside of other YouTube channels plugging your channel, you suck. Like, you just have to suck. You are so boring, you literally cannot gain subscribers. And you're so dumb, you can't gain subscribers off of your knowledge. You just suck in every way.
Whoa.
So,
We just saw a gain of 3 subscribers. Oh my God, 3 subscribers! I can't believe it. It's a miracle.
Oh my lord! Wow, we are actually gaining a lot of subscribers. Jeez, I just looked at that.
Oh no, for us, no, it's not +3. It was like plus 1,000, I think. No, that's the hot dog man. That's +3, not us.
Oh, I thought you meant us. I was because like
no, man, we've gained like 1,000 in the last few days. No, we've been growing by leaps and bounds.
I'm not kidding. I was literally looking at the subscriber figure right before we played this clip, and then you said we got 3, and I looked back and we had literally gotten 3 in like 2 minutes, and I thought you were talking about us. I was like, really? I was like, no way. But we can't.
Man, we're making gains that the hot dog man would love to make in maybe, months and like a couple of days.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. And with that, that's the end of that clip right there, showing what the Avdiivka coke plant looks like. But that wasn't the end of the Avdiivka coke plant today. With the Russians moving in, the Ukrainians are planning on being the moving crew that helps them to move on right back out of where they are. Of course, I gotta mute the trap. Y'all can already hear a little bit of it.
Here we can see the Russians attempting to create a new barrow, and it's getting blown away immediately. Call the Russians toasted and crispy, because they are really giving Rice Krispies a run for their money.
But anyways, that's the end of the clip right there. And I gotta say, it is impressive to see that the Ukrainians are already calling in precision artillery strikes to blast away the Russians on the very far side of the coke plant. moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see that the 3rd Brigade was moving around Avdiivka. This was actually filmed, crazily enough, by United 24 in some of the last days of the battle, but giving us a really good insight and look into the overall actions of the 3rd Assault Brigade during those final days of the battle for the city.
Солодку смерть у муках за тебе. І розплинуся в тобі.
Damn.
І вічно житиму в тобі. Відвічна Україна. Свята. Могутня. Соборна. Героям слава. Смерть ворогам. Понад усе. Понад усе. Понад усе.
Слухаємо. Короче, лежаки на спину, и нам прийти тут, ебать, буквально 50 метров. Стой, 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 стой. Пошел, пошел, пошел. Пошел.
I'm not gonna lie, like, I gotta say, like, that chant at the beginning was a little off-putting.
It was pretty hardcore, I'm not gonna lie.
It was interesting.
But the 3rd Brigade is kind of known for being the hardcore unit. They kind of have to have a pretty dark mentality to do what they do, because stormtrooping is the deadliest kind of fighting that can be undertaken, because you're fighting in such small confines that even with high levels of skill, the chances of death are always there and always present. So they kind of have to have a bit of an ominous overtone to their mindset. Otherwise, they're probably not going to be good as stormtroopers like they are. And also, some people are probably, you know, because some people, for some reason, think literally everything's Nazi. To quickly explain that, stormtroopers are not a Nazi thing, and they're not a Star Wars thing either. Stormtrooper is a general term that was born out of the First World War for a special variant of infantry that were specialized in trench warfare, or more so close-hand, high-intensity fighting that would require the highest of morale, the highest level of recklessness, and on top of that, a high amount of grenades, shovels, knives, and all kinds of other pretty much just blunt weapons. But anyways.
Группы Хорд там, он командующий всей операцией.
Это совсем хуйня у тебя там. У тебя рассечение, все хорошо, братик. Я думал даже страшнее сначала. Все красота у тебя.
That's the first I've ever heard anyone say, "Oh, you got a dissection, you'll be fine."
Yeah.
Мен, ще 300.
Он там бегает в белом маскалате, я его вижу.
Все нормально, сейчас перейдемо в другу хату.
Я не чую ніхуя, практично все пищить.
Ладно, пригибайся, як прилітає.
Он там, блядь! Сыпь туда, блядь!
Плюс! Насипай, як ми балакали, блядь! Давай! На 12, ебаш! На 12, сука! Плюс! Откат! Давай! Газу! Закрывай! Сбив! Хорош! Дрон сбив! Ми тут, якщо що, готові. Відкривати двері, гранати. Ну нам гранати не понадобились поки що, да, відьмачок? Помахай ручкою. Передай привіт! Що ти збив? Я збив FPV-шку! Отлично! Пошли!
Куда?
мной!
Все не выходите на крышу, нечего.
Не в пивишку, не в пивишку, а чердак открыта дверь.
Oh, wait a minute. Did we see this yesterday?
We saw a good bit of it yesterday, and it looks like, to be honest with you, United 24 just kind of made a compilation of all the clips we showed like 3 or 4 days ago. So
Yeah, when that beat dropped, I knew I'd seen this either yesterday or the day before.
yeah, I mean, I think we're actually going to move on beyond this because usually United 24 kind of has a documentary, and I was kind of expecting at some point the documentary part would pick up, but this is really just the combination of all the clips we showed about 3 days ago, and they kind of just put them all into one video. But moving on from that and into our next bit of news, because, you know, all of those videos we've already seen on the channel earlier. Moving on from that, we got to see an entire Russian column moving through Avdiivka today was destroyed by the FPV drones. Check it out. There they are. We can see them moving right where the mouse cursor is, and then turning right and towards the camera, where you see the first FPV drone come in and knock out the second MTLB in the column. We now see more vehicles trying to move into a specific building in the city. Now you see that apparently these FPV drone strikes are being credited to the 47th Brigade, still holding Stepove and even fighting just south of the Avdiivka coke plant, knocking out this entire convoy.
And also, I've seen a few people tonight say this actually, but Kathy Robinson said in the live chat, I've had to subscribe every night for a week now. And YouTube's been having some glitches lately. They told us yesterday that on February 20th, they had a big glitch where it miscalculated all the viewer counts and everything, and they're trying to fix it. I'm not sure if they actually got it working yet or not, but YouTube definitely has some glitches happening here and there, but we're assured that they're working on it, so hopefully they actually do. They have fixed things in the past, but it takes them some time to get to it sometimes.
Also, that was the end of the clip right there, a perfect way to round it out, talking about some YouTube issues. But also, we see that the Russians trying to move through Avdiivka are running into some very big issues from the 47th Brigade's drone forces, like we saw right there. Moving on from that, we also got to see the Russians showing the ruins of Avdiivka post-battle. Also, really quickly, while we are looking at this...
Здесь перезаряжались и туда. Это что делалось? Мы заскакивали же потом сразу этот вечер, заскакивали. Но здесь они были, все оборудовано. У них много...
Also, while this clip is going on, I wanted to really quickly bring up something else that I've been seeing a good bit in the chat tonight while we just watch this clip and look at the devastation of Avdiivka. A lot of people are bringing up a specific thing that went on, and many of y'all know what I'm talking about. It's a certain someone out there doing their usual thing, and for some reason I'm seeing some people mentioning it tonight a little bit more so than normal. I would make sure to avoid that specific person. He's got mental issues, some very severe mental issues. And the thing that really gets him going the most is when anyone even mentions his name or gives him attention. We've decided to treat him like a basket case because he is one. He's constantly trying to threaten our lives and our family endlessly without any end in sight. So I would highly recommend that if y'all want to find the best way to deal with this guy, y'all just leave him alone and don't even bring up his name. Because the guy's like a demon. He feeds off of people saying his name. So just don't even say it. Well, you see the Russians picking up some weapons.
That's something they've never seen before, is that weapon.
Dude, they're looking at that going, what the hell is this? Like, they've never seen an RPG. And they can, they also got a bucket of drone bomblets. Wow, they really got a whole catch here, man. Like, some AT-4s and some drone bomblets. Dude, they won the lottery.
He's gonna play with it and see if he can blow up.
And with that...
look at them, just hauling off with it.
Dude, they're like, we could actually use this crap on God. They're like stealing it. But still, with that, it is nice to see that the Ukrainians did not really leave a lot behind, because it looks like the worst thing that they left behind was 2 AT-4s. And AT-4s aren't really the most devastating AT weapon nowadays. They're good, but they're not great. So it's kind of funny to see the Russians made a big deal out of just some drone bomblets and some AT-4s. It, crazily enough, shows the Ukrainians got out of there with most of everything that they went in with. But with that, we're now moving on to our next clip, where we got to see some FPV drones hunting some Russian armor. Hey, Matthew, it's the rave. It's the rave.
Drop the bass. Drop the bass. Oh, dang.
Real trap shit.
Trapaholics.
Walk with
We
your
make it look easy.
boys.
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
And where did they find this garbage, man? They got a burned out BMP-2 in there.
Yeah, it looks like a junkyard where you keep a little scrappy dog yet, like a bulldog or something.
Man.
It's like where you keep Putin.
Junkyard dog, because they got that dog in them. The hell? Man, I saw you, man, in the chat. Dude, that was literally like that guy in that clip I showed you where he was going, please don't, please don't, please don't. It's like, what the hell is wrong with him? Anyways. Huh?
I said, man.
Man. Dude, your microphone only picked up the M. It went, and then it cut off. I was like, wait, what did he say?
Meep.
Meep, meep, meep. But with that, that's the end of the clip. Nice to see, though, that the Ukrainian FPV drones are hunting down the Russians.
Hold up. This is an interesting bot here. I got to call this one out because it's creative, actually. The user is called Pot Calling Kettle. And the message they sent to us was, acting modest while name calling. How righteous. And their name is Pot Calling Kettle.
Yeah, that is kind of ironic. That is
really very ironic.
Well, there he went. I saw him get banned. I was like, well, there he goes. But yeah, you know, we've seen a little influx of hot dog salesmen here in the chat tonight, and I'd like y'all to know, speaking of which, that we're coming up with something kind of cool in the background. I'm not going to share a lot yet, but there will be some hot dog merch. That I will guarantee you. There will be hot dog merch. Aw, man. Because when life gives you hot dogs, you open a hot dog stand. Clearly. But
that's what we're good at. Like, you remember when that bot came up in here with its friends and everything and called us Amerifatties? We literally turned that into a profitable merch line because that bot came in here thinking they were going to insult us. And we're about to do the same thing over again.
Man, we're about to do it again, but this time even better. But anyways,
bigger and better.
I'm gonna tell y'all. I'm gonna tell y'all something absolutely wonk. Like, yo, if you rock a wonka. But anyways, I'm about to tell y'all something absolutely whack. So, of course, some people have been bringing up that there has been a particular person just absolutely going off on us, of course, saying their usual crap tonight. You know, it's nothing new. But one thing that's funny that we were both getting a laugh at is that this person's particular YouTube channel is performing so poorly that the last time they ran a stream, it was like 4 days ago, and I think it was about us. They literally do not cover the news anymore of the war in Ukraine, and then the next time they run a show, it's mostly about us. Like, it's literally just become a hate the enforcer channel, which I find funny. And also, it's just hilarious. I can't go into it too much because I don't want to just sit here and harp on it because the guy's a mentally deranged loser, but beyond that, it is hilarious to both of us at this point. We just get a huge laugh out of it. Now, we hope y'all get a laugh out of it too. But anyways, moving on from that, we got to see some Ukrainian forces near to Avdiivka. We got to see these two ladies insert the thirsty comments in the chat.
Oh, man. That thirst trap. Oh, man.
And we got to see this Ukrainian looking at a TM62 anti-tank mine.
Is he poking it with a twig?
No. It looks like it nearly. I had to look at that really hard, but he's not. He's just looking at it.
Oh, well, that's a good thing. It's never good to poke a mine with a twig.
Yeah, I don't think it's good to poke any mine with anything, but still, I mean, at least the guy's just taking a good look at it. He's pondering on the mine. It's the mine of wisdom. And remember, Matthew, mind your business. But anyways, moving on from that and into one of our last bits of news, near the Avdiivka area today, all the way down near Pervomaiske, we got to see some Ukrainian forces in their positions. And we actually got to see some really cool stuff. It's kind of normal stuff, but it's kind of like spot the items kind of a video. So here's the clip. We see a plate carrier. We can see a personal army, personal armor system for ground troops helmet, a PASGT helmet.
Some hard candy with it.
And we can see a old Soviet spam can here filled with 7-in-6 armor-piercing ammo. A very common ammo, but also a pretty potent one. By the way, share with you all a little fun fact about that ammo. This ammo is corrosive, meaning that the gunpowder will actually eat your gun inside out if you don't clean it quickly after shooting. So, really interesting about that ammo. And back in the day, all ammo was corrosive, but we see him looking around. We can see loads of AKs. I mean, every single kind of AK-74 you can imagine. We can also see a really nice AK-74 like M. It's got pretty modern furniture on it. We see a classic AK-74 right there. Not really a lot of Bakelite mags, which is really interesting. And with that, that's the end of the clip. It's just showing us a little bit of some Ukrainian forces in their positions, kind of doing a day in the life kind of a deal. But moving on from that and inside of Donetsk, we also get to see that apparently a massive explosion happened in Donetsk today. We don't really have a lot of information about it, but we did get to see the aftermath, and it looks like whatever happened, it was a hit. Oh, never mind. We actually got to see the hit.
But...
Yeah, but.
Wait, what did he say? Go back.
Yeah, but.
Wow, that was...
Yeah, boy.
Dude,
yeah, boy.
Dude, that's what we say when we see another bot. And I'm seeing one right now, Matthew. I'm not going to ban him. I'm going to wait for you to see him. But I'm seeing one that is coming in here and saying some very interesting things. But this guy sat there and went, yay, bot. That's our reaction when we see a bot come in. Then we go, yay, bot. But anyways, that's the end of that clip. And he's apparently seen more interesting things than an attack happening on his own block, up in his own hood. But moving on from that and down into Marinka, we did get to see a Russian soldier getting destroyed down here, particularly several of them. There they are, over here, and we can see the Ukrainians hitting apparently another group that was over here. Yeah, boy.
That was me that said, yeah, boy. That was me. Everyone's like, was that the enforcer? Enforcer Matt? That was me.
Yeah, bot.
They said, man has the same voice as enforcer.
No way, crazy. And we get to see this Russian column getting attacked right here, too.
And also to John Kokoza, I run the Twitter as well, so when you message over there, that's actually me as well. But Enforcer is asking you the name of a song, and I don't know the names of any of the songs. So when everyone always asks, I always have to say, well, I'm not sure, but I think Andrew knows. But, you know, I think you know the names to all of them.
Which song was it?
He said that folk song.
that folk song. We have two of them. One of them is called When the Cossacks Were Riding, which is like a 19th century Cossack song. And then the other one is Pourin Brothers Crystal Bowls. That's the second song that plays. And it's kind of like a war song from the Ukrainian Cossacks. And, you know, how about they're going to get absolutely schmacked after the battle. So, you know, they're both fun songs. And those are the two folk songs we have in the intro. And then the last one's by Rockdar.
Baraktar.
And ooh, that Russian column having a tough day. Turrets are lost and tanks are just sitting in the field rotting to pieces.
Like those Russians yesterday.
Man, like them Ruski soldat, bled. But moving on from that little clip and on into our next one. We also got to see a ground-launched small-diameter bomb blowing away a Russian Zala team. Here's the Zala team. They're picking up their drone. And J33 Plover said, I think he means the song about the Kamaz. And let me go see. He said it was a Russian, folks. Okay, that was Polzhet Kamaz, which means forward Kamaz. So you can type that in on YouTube, forward Kamaz song, or the Kamaz song, and now pull up the name of the song. That song, like the kind of like the story behind it, is that it's a song about the Soviet Kamaz drivers in the Soviet-Afghan War, never stopping for anything and always running the danger of driving these little tiny country roads in Afghanistan to try and drop off supplies to forward points of the Soviet forces in the country. So I hope that helps. Because let's see. Yeah, that is the song, John. That would be Polzhet Kamaz. So hopefully that helps. But we can see the Russians here getting their Zala. They're trying to put it in the back of their van. The Russians put many things in the back of vans. But today it's a drone. Other days it's washing machines. Some other times it's even other things, but I'm not getting into that. But we can see them driving away in the van.
Man, like the local neighborhood pervert, too. Like just pulling into a house looking all suspicious.
Hey there, son. You want some NyQuil?
Dude, the Ukrainians gonna be like, hell no. Man, I gotta get rid of that.
They'll be like, yeah, I want some NyQuil.
Man,
probably like a hot dog, man.
Hi there, son. Would you like a hot dog?
She gets blown up.
Yes, I would.
I want to see them die on the front lines of Ukraine because that is oh so good. Oh man. But that's the end of the clip. And I think that Zala team ended up getting Zazad into oblivion. But moving on from that and into our next little clip, a little bit further down the line, and towards the area of Robotane, we got to see some heavy indicators of fighting going on in this area. Specifically, the amount of shells that have been fired. Okay, well, that's a cool
turn
song.
down the bass a little bit.
Your
the bass is too loud. Turn it down.
Your buddy will never. It's just like, jeez, man, turn it down. The bass is too loud. And the trench goes on and on and on. Just like Putin talking about history. Just on and on and on. Can someone stop him? Please.
Mr. Putin, why'd you invade Ukraine? And Putin says, well, 4,000 years ago, the Earth was in its cooling phase.
You saw that meme. That was a good one, too.
Yeah, I'm the one who put the meme out.
Dude, I put a meme on our Twitter from Cody from the Alternate History Hub, if you ever watched his channel. And it was like, so why'd you invade Ukraine? And it was that song, You Didn't Have to Cut Me Off. And it was like the epic version of it. And it was like just flashing through a whole bunch of crap. It was hilarious, man, because it was pretty much what he did. But still, moving on from that, we can see some indicators of heavy fighting in that area. And moving all the way over really quickly over here to Cranky, because there wasn't really a lot that happened here today. We did get to hear of our boy Madyar bombing some Russians. He's back at it again, and he's going for it, baby. Get him!
Усі питають за кринки. У цьому епізоді вся правда про захоплення кринків хробаками. Забігли, зачепили прапора за гіляку, відео записали, гасла вигукнули і втікли. У цей день командир декласованої саме в кринках 810-ї бригади класу отримав звання генерала. А Шойгу відрапортував бункерному діду і понеслося. Лівобережний плацдарм складний. Хробаки не рахуються ні з особовим складом, ні з технікою, не покладаючи надії звільнити раніше втрачені позиції. Але отримують регулярних цілодобових піздюлей і повзуть зализувати рани. Вон до того чарівного.
There's the car antenna. A
Кринки
legend.
стерті у попіл. Але хробак знає справжню ціну. І ми її знаємо. І продовжуватимемо боротися. А прапори – це лише елемент.
And there's the flag of the naval infantry
Чим вони їх тільки
and
не
the Russian
носили.
Federation.
Вон, до прикладу, паде збитий
There's the car antenna.
системою реба
The
хробачий
drone's coming in, hot and heavy.
зачарований ліс, котрий теж пробував занести 2 прапори. Не знаю, видно вам чи ні, але все усад. Такі
We see the drone flying over the countryside, getting ready to drop its bombs.
годину. Пішов у сосни. Це окуповані козачі лагері. Ціленькі і не зруйновані. Кишать хробаками, але тут живе велика кількість цивільного населення. Тож ми їм регулярно нагадуємо про свою безпосередню близькість. Ну і хробаків кошмаримо. Дронами, звісно, не прапорами, як хробачня у кринків. Але пора до справ. Ніч, що минула, було насиченою в ночного доктора, котрий пригощав цукерками хробачню. Бада!
Бада-бум! Чаки-чаки, блядь!
І добротно. Ну, зручно, як завжди. Тут дісталося відразу 2 хробачим вантажівочкам та складику бика. Безхитрісні і відкриті. Займаються вони швиденько, бехкають, пехкають, ну і потім довго супроводжують ще.
Man, that fire right there is about as explosive as some of those tweets.
Ліс, шкода.
Man.
О, ще один складик бика. Правда, цей вже під псевдонакатом. Добре. Ну та й в'йо, цукерка хробакам. На-на!
Oh, that's
Добре
new.
зайшов.
Na-na. Na-na, poo-poo. I like it. I like it. It's very good, блядь.
Файно. Тяга хороша. Буде діло. А боєприпасів якраз таки не буде. В даному випадку хробак заморочився. Глибокий такий капонір закопав, накрив зверху, на шару, правда. Як вони в тому піску копаються, ми сюди інженерну техніку взагалі не допускаємо, хробачу, жодну. Ні, якось закопуються. Але в даному випадку йому не допомогло. Йдемо далі. Що тут у нас недалеченько від складику заховалося?
And y'all can see the little Russian vehicle down there. Y'all know it's about to get blasted, блядь.
Доктор вже на місці. Пригостимо новим типом цукерочки. Аджа!
He's just coming up with whatever now. Like, he's just coming up with all these different sayings. But nevertheless, I'm actually going to end the clip here because it is 12 minutes long. And believe it or not, y'all, the news segment has gone on 20 minutes longer than normal tonight. And I want to make sure that we are able to cover all of the news and also get to talk to all of y'all too, because that is truly the funnest part of the night. So, we're going to be moving on from this. But if y'all want to see it, there is a link in the description below to the day 729 map. Y'all can go there, click on the link in the description, and go check out all these clips. And it will take you directly to where they're from. But moving on from that, and up into Kyiv, we were able to see a speech from the president of Ukraine. And so, without further ado, here is the peach.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні.
Жалуются на курені. But let's see. Yep, we're good. And here's the speech.
Українці, українки, сьогодні почав день з проведення ставки не лише щодо оперативної ситуації на передовій зараз, але й також з інших стратегічних питань. Зокрема, підготовки нашої держави до переходу на F-16. Була спеціальна доповідь про це, усі параметри щодо першої партії літаків, конкретні терміни постачання, необхідне технічне та інфраструктурне забезпечення. Деталі позитивні. Цього року наші повітряні сили стануть сильніші. Це фундаментальні завдання. Конкретно це захист від російських керованих авіабомб, загалом нові можливості на лінії фронту. Звичайно, були на ставці сьогодні і доповіді головкома, розвідки, міністра оборони та інших урядовців, які відповідають за озброєння. Особлива увага кільком напрямкам – Авдіївському та Південним. Сьогодні ж провів зустріч з представниками наших держав-партнерів і з членами дипломатичного корпусу, які працюють в Україні. Дуже важливо, що в нашій столиці, в нашій країні триває нормальна дипломатична робота. Навіть, можна сказати, рутинна робота між українськими дипломатами та іноземними представниками, між нашими інституціями та міжнародними організаціями. Я вдячний кожній державі, кожному лідеру, чиї представники в Україні та з Україною. Це одне зі свідчень віри в нашу державу, поваги до українського народу і довіри до нашої сили, до нашої здатності досягати українських цілей. Говорили серед іншого про необхідність чіткої та принципової співпраці заради реалізації формули миру, заради більшої безпеки і для України, і для кожної з наших країн, і також заради внутрішньої трансформації України. Ми працюємо, до речі, також над тим, щоб розширити наше представництво у світі. Минулого року були відкриті нові посольства України в Африці. Загалом був досягнутий більший рівень взаємодії з лідерами та країнами на африканському континенті. На цей рік ми плануємо додати більше активностей і потенціалу співпраці, зокрема, на напрямку Латинської Америки. Говорив сьогодні з президентом Європейської ради Шарлем Мішелем. Дуже конкретна розмова, максимально про наші спільні інтереси усіх європейців. Я вдячний тобі, Шарлі, пане президенте, за цілковиту конструктивність. Перше, абсолютно неприйнятна ситуація на кордоні з Польщею. Поінформував про нашу українську ініціативу негайної зустрічі на кордоні наших представників України та Польщі, а також Європейської комісії. Я вдячний за підтримку, готовність докласти своїх зусиль для того, щоб якнайшвидше захистити інтереси європейської безпеки та повернути усій ситуації суто правовий характер. Домовлятися варто, і пропозиції України цілком конкретні. Друге, обговорили з Шарлем, з паном президентом, наші зусилля щодо європейської інтеграції та необхідність якнайшвидшого затвердження переговорної рамки для України, затвердження державами-членами Євросоюзу. Мета абсолютно раціональна. Вже в першій половині року, навіть до червня, можемо почати переговорний процес. І це буде найкращим сигналом усім, хто не вірить в Європу, що наше єднання дійсно міцнішає. Ще одне. Сьогодні відзначу одразу кілька країн за пакети підтримки для України. Данія. Оголошено вже 15-й оборонний пакет. Боєприпаси, дрони, посилення наших воїнів. Дякую, ціную, що усі наші домовленості з Метте, пані прем'єр-міністром Данії, ідеально реалізовуються. Велика Британія. Є оголошення про підготовку пакету. Зокрема, він додасть сили для відбиття російських штурмів. Є пакет від Нової Зеландії, який посилить нашу логістику, розвідку, зв'язок, а також за підтримку у тренуванні наших воїнів. Чим більше з Москви лунає божевільних заяв, тим більшою повинна бути наша сила. Тільки сила нашого захисту життя, нашої здатності досягати власних цілей може повернути Росію до стану хоча б часткової тверезості. Російське божевілля повинно програти цю війну. Ми зробимо усе для цього. Дякую всім, хто б'ється заради України, працює заради України та допомагає. Слава Україні!
And Slava Ukraini. And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky, and we're moving on into the fun part of the stream where we get to talk to all of y'all, and we get to talk to every single one of y'all. We get to talk to the folks who threw in the super chats, and hopefully a lot of people who threw in the live chats, because tonight is a fun night. Tonight is a great night. Matthew, isn't that right?
It is.
It's
Oh
a
my
great
God,
night.
man.
I'm having a blast. I'm having a fun time. Matthew's having a fun time. Everyone is having a fun time around here. We love it. We love to see it. We love to hear it. And not only that, I would like to, first off, before we even move on into this question segment, I would like to congratulate all of the new members of the Lee Spring Army today who just subscribed. We have ended up getting, and let me make sure I'm counting this correctly, nearly 300 subscribers just over today. If you were watching and you're one of those new subscribers, welcome to the Lee Spring Army. That's our community. That's what's called. If you're wondering why, we probably need to make a video on that or some kind of an explainer somewhere as to why it's called that. But beyond that, welcome. It's been a great day. It's been absolutely incredible. And before we even get into talking to all of y'all, I just want y'all to know off the bat that I am more than honored and more than happy to know that so many of y'all are here with us tonight and have been here with us for so long watching this news. I have not harped on this enough tonight, but tomorrow is going to be the 2nd year anniversary of the war in Ukraine. We're not really going to be doing what we did last year, which was really big, you know, having loads of guests on and then like half of them stabbing us in the back, but then, you know, having, you know, a whole bunch of other stuff going on. We had a special intro. I'm actually going to be making this year a little bit more, reserved, but it's still going to be a celebration because Ukraine tomorrow will have officially survived 2 entire years of a Russian invasion, and not only survived, but has largely thrived throughout pretty much the majority of it and has done way better than anyone ever expected them to. It's been absolutely incredible to know that all of y'all have been here with us every single step of the way, and I thank y'all all for being here with us as we're about to be able to get to talk to all of y'all here very soon. I mean, like literally right now. And so, Matthew, one second, I gotta take care of something here because I know you're having a fun time over there. Yeah, but I saw a little holdover right there from that. But anyways, it's time for us, Matthew, to get moving on in to them questions, and most importantly, the polls first. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so for the poll that we currently have running, it says Ukraine intel warns Russia is planning a campaign to assassinate top Ukrainian leaders soon. And what are your thoughts? The majority of people, the vast majority, said it is likely true and it's time for more security, while only a small percentage said it's likely false and only a hype tactic. And I think this plan has been in motion ever since the war started. They've had hit squads out for Zelensky and every other member of the Ukrainian government, and I don't think it's really anything new. This did come from Ukrainian intelligence, so it sounds like they're simply rehashing something that's already been said. It's nothing unprecedented, so everyone pretty much already has the maximum level of security, so I think they should be fine. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say they're probably okay. I would believe so. And yeah, I think they'll be fine. I mean, hell, they've been trying to kill them throughout most of the war. If they're trying to create a reinvigorated assassination campaign, it'll probably go about as good as I'm expecting. It'll be a miserable failure. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And with that, do we have another one?
And we do have another one. This one says U.S. citizens have been warned to leave Russia due to major upcoming sanctions. And what are your thoughts? 43% said the sanctions will be massive. 26% said I'm going to wait and see, and 23% said it sounds like just hype by the United States. And on this one, I've said before, I'm not sure what else we can really sanction Russia on, but after tonight, I've learned that the EU is still accepting some grain from Russia, or they were. So maybe there are things I'm not aware of that we have not cut off just yet. I thought that stuff had been cut off. But if it is true, we can cut off more stuff, then that's great. We should have been doing that a long time ago. And I guess the United States thinks that now we're going to apply maximum sanctions to them. That's going to cause Russia and Putin to crack down on the remaining Americans inside of Russia for whatever crazy people are still left in that country, which, in my opinion, they're a little bit deranged to be still in Russia at this point because they're taking political prisoners all the time. But Enforcer, what say you?
Hi there, Patrick Lancaster here, and we're here with the Russian army watching them execute some folks. What are you doing here? You know, that's probably the Americans that are left, to be honest. I don't think they're leaving because I think they're kind of, you know, too far up the Kool-Aid drink to, you know, be leaving. But beyond that, it does sound like the sanctions are going to be pretty freaking severe. I don't really, like Matthew said, I don't really know what we can sanction them on, but I guess that means that there's going to be a lot of hype to find out what the sanctions are tomorrow. So make sure to tune in, folks, at 10 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow, because we're going to be going over how badly screwed the Russians really are. So make sure to show up tomorrow, because we're going to be talking about the fun times that the West is going to be going through, and the Russians will not be going through at all. They'll be suffering. They'll be on the suffer bus, but we'll be on that bus of fun, as usual. But beyond that, I hope that does address that well. And let's see here. Hang on, I gotta catch up on something. Hang on, folks. Hang on here. Oh, dang it. I've had it on the top chat, Matthew. That's why I haven't been seeing something. Hang on. Let me go through.
I'm desperately searching for a bot right now. Like, people have tipped me off, but I don't see him. Like, he's hiding in here pretty good.
Let's see. Huh. Interesting. Saw someone say, something about some guy, and you responded to him. I was like, who the hell's that? But
I don't even know who it was, but honestly, it sounds like he's nuts. I don't know who he is.
Yeah, it sounds like they're nuts, but you know, who knows who they are? You know, silly people these days. And like Sax2 said, take their library cards away, snatch their lunches from them. But anyways, I hope that does address it the best I can. I had to catch up on the absolute tea going on in the live chat, but beyond that, we got to make sure to talk to all of y'all, because whether y'all have thrown in a super chat or a live chat, it does not matter to me. It is so fun to talk to all of y'all, because all of y'all bring up really interesting points, bring up some really funny stuff sometimes, and also just really cool little rabbit holes for all of us to go down and talk about. But Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping back into our super chat questions, we have a $20 donation from Gilly Flower, who does not leave a comment, but thank you very much, Gilly Flower, for always throwing in support to the channel. You are one of the regulars that are helping to keep us running, and we do notice and appreciate it very much. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to thank you, Gilly Flower. Of course, you are one of our regulars here on the channel that continuously supports it and helps it to keep running. I think it means a lot. Well, I don't think it means a lot. It means a lot to us that people really do enjoy the channel and want to help us to keep this thing running, because it just means a great deal. It really does. It means a great deal to me that y'all enjoy the channel enough that y'all find it worthwhile to support, because, you know, a lot of people are out there making this kind of content. You know, and people have different ways of being supported, you know, like some people run ads, some people run sponsors, some people run Patreons, you know, we do too, but, you know, that's not our primary way of keeping the channel running. The way we keep the channel running is through super chats. And it really does make us so happy to know that people really do want to see the channel succeed, and not only that, prosper and continue to super chat and support the channel, because it's really the only way we make it possible. And even then, YouTube takes 30% of it. That's great. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that quite well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And very well. Our next one goes to Hal Rose, who throws in a $33 donation. And Hal Rose is another channel regular that's absolutely killing it out here. I'm absolutely killing it. And thank you very much, Hal, for that support. And they said, Enforcer Matt, I heard Putin caught Shoigu in a lie. What say you? And pick a question, please.
Yes, he did.
You know, I would say I wouldn't be shocking whatsoever, because Shoigu has to do that, or otherwise he might lose his life very quickly. But now he's even worse, in worse shape. But Enforcer, what say you now?
He did, Matthew. I didn't show it on the news tonight, but Shoigu sat there in a meeting today, and he said, President Putin, I'm proud to say that we have recaptured the city of Krinky. And then Putin literally just went, eh. And that was it. Like that was it. He just literally went, eh, like, because it's not captured. Like, they planted a flag, and then the guys who planted the flag got blown up like 30 seconds later. So that's not really a capture. But yes, I say
how would Putin know if it's captured or not? If the generals don't tell him.
You see, Matthew, it is a very simple answer. Allow me a couple of seconds to give you a brief explanation. You see, back at the very beginning of time, when the Dnipro River was beginning to form in the territory of Ukraine, the silts started to produce a marsh on the left bank of the river, near to the Dniprovska Gulf. It started to create the landmass.
Hey, cut the crap, get to the point.
Do you want today?
Wait a minute. If you're Tucker Carlson, what do you do?
I was busy that day.
It's time to go silent. Let's not say anything.
No, you sit there and go, I was busy that day.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
yeah. You do something like that. Man, that guy. Oh man,
That guy's
dude.
laughing something. Tucker Carlson, like I watched he's been like making the podcast rounds here recently. Like, I don't know what the guy's deal is. He comes across like this is a person, very fake. Like it's just the way he presents himself seems very like manufactured. Like he's like perfected this public persona so well that he's like lost his soul or something. Like outside of his journalism, which I really don't, view too highly. Just him as an individual, it's like what is up with him? It's like he's a little bit like off-putting for some reason.
He's kind of off-putting like Tom Cruise levels of off-putting. Like in an interview.
Not really. I mean, Tom Cruise is more relatable than Tucker Carlson. When you see him like acting the way he really acts, it's like I don't know what's up with Tucker, but he seems a little creepy. Like when you see him just acting the way he acts.
Well, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, a lot of them come off like that, though. I mean, like, didn't you see when those people went around and started? Like, I'm not coming to his defense or anything. I'm just saying that a lot of news people are like that. I'm not saying it's a good thing. It's just that a lot of them are like that. Remember when someone was able to catch a lot of the CNN reporters off air and ask them questions? They all kind of come off as fake and rude. It's like to make it in like the real mainstream news world on like Fox or CNN or something. You kind of got to be fake. Like I think it's just a standard industry wide deal with that, but. As far
and
as
you also see that Tucker is pushing that snuff or that like tobacco
Zen.
or whatever
Zen.
nicotine. Yeah, he keeps pushing that. I saw him yesterday, like pushing this really hard. I'm like, why is he pushing like some addictive like nicotine and stuff like that? It's like, doesn't he have anything else to hawk if he wants to make some money? It's like he's pushing it like it's a healthy thing too. Like it's just good for you to take. It's good for everyone.
Dude, Zen is freaking crack cocaine in nicotine form. I actually looked into that, and apparently Zen is a very high nicotine concentration off the bat. I think it's more than a cigarette. But then someone did some testing and found out that most flavors of Zen apparently have 150% more nicotine than is even advertised on the labeling. So it is like nicotine extreme. Like it is the Panera Bread charged lemonade of the nicotine world. And that is nuts to me. Like one, I don't think anyone's under the misillusion the disillusion at this point that anything with nicotine in it isn't necessarily great for your health, whether it be cigarettes, cigars, vapes, which were supposed to be the replacer, and now we're finding out that those are as unhealthy, even unhealthier than cigarettes and cigars, funnily enough. And now there's Zen, which seems to be like the new most concentrated nicotine product out there on the market right now. And I personally wouldn't touch the stuff.
Because he doesn't give a damn. You can tell when he talks about it. He doesn't give a damn. He knows it's addictive, and he's just sitting there like, "Oh yeah, it's great, man. Have you tried this? Have you tried this?" Like, dude, you're like, it's a drug. It's like you're actually pushing a drug. Sure, it's legal, but still, it's like that's not exactly a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, and also J33 Plover said, Zen allowed me to quit smoking and vaping. I mean, yeah, probably. I mean, it has a higher nicotine concentration than both of them. It's probably pretty easy because it's it gives you more of a punch per the pack. In reality, but still, I mean, I wouldn't touch the stuff. And a lot of people are saying things, Zen, real Zen is pretty healthy. Maybe, I mean, but the thing is that I don't trust anything that is altering, that's why we don't drink. That's why I don't drink personally. Alcohol, I don't smoke, or anything like that, because it messes with your natural state of who you are. Like it will change. Like it's proven alcohol will destroy your liver, and not only that, it also has some psychological effects, especially with a high amount of usage, like everything does. If it messes with your dopamine receptors to an exceedingly high level, chances are it's having an effect on you in the short term even, but certainly an effect on you in the long term. So I don't really like messing with that stuff because I like to think that I am who I am, and it's not really being altered by any kind of a substance, whether it be nicotine, whether it be alcohol, or whether it actually be a real schedule kind of drug like cocaine or something like that. I don't want to touch any of that stuff because it is not good for you. None of it's good for you. And then some people take it to the extreme, and then they say caffeine and sugar are also the same. I can go without eating sugar. Sugar makes me sick, and also I don't like caffeine. The only reason I drink coffee is to run this show. So, I can't really get the argument there, but with stuff like alcohol and tobacco, where you actually see people become in really bad straits from using the stuff, I'm generally for, dissuading people from using it. Not saying that, like, I think that it should be banned. I mean, it's a free country. You do whatever you want at the end of the day. It's just that I wouldn't use the stuff. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that quite well, in our opinion. But still, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that did address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $50 super chat from Wilness, LSA, Latvia.
Wow.
He is the LSA Latvia chapter, and he throws in that 50. And thank you very much, Wilness, for that support. And let's see here. No super sticker or no comment either, so nothing to address, but huge thanks to you. And Enforcer, what say you?
Wellness, my boy. Just thank you for the support, and also thank you for being one of our Latvian viewers, Wellness. And also, congratulations on Latvia today being the first to completely ban the imports of Russian and Belarusian grain. Congratulations for that. Really setting a trend, hopefully. And thank you for the support and helping the channel to keep on running. Of course, without throwing in a comment, your support says a lot and helps us to make this thing possible and helps us to keep this thing rolling. And so, I gotta say, thank you so much. You are making this channel possible. You are one of the people of the LSA who allows our flag to fly high. Excuse me, I just burped. If you heard that, it was a burp. It was not anything.
Hear it.
Okay, good. Thank God. But I was like, I burped. Don't take it out of context. But anyways, outside of that, speaking of that support and helping this channel to fly our flag another day, you know what? I'm actually going to do something tonight. I'm actually going to show you all the flag design we have at the moment. Right now, this is what we're going with. It's going to be modified a little bit, but this one actually came in from a viewer working off the flag design I showed you all on stream. And I think it looks really good, really classy, and a lot better than the flag design I had. So, without further ado, let me pop open the Discord, and here it is. Sadly, Matthew won't be able to see it, but this is pretty much getting towards being one of the final flag designs that we are going to have for the Lee Spring Army. It's really nice.
Fantastic.
It is honestly fantastic. It integrates a Lee Spring into the flag, and it doesn't look bad or out of place. It looks really good, and the wings on the eagle look really good. The tail is really good. I have to say, the entire thing is great. We're probably going to have a few things change. We're going to try and figure out how to have LSA put onto the body of the eagle, and also make the eagle's head probably a little bit more angular and sharp looking. But beyond that, this is probably going to be the final flag design. It's going to change just a little bit more, but this is going to be the LSA flag. It is beautiful.
And a huge shout out to the way by Pterosaur who made this flag. And I hope I'm saying your username correctly because I'm not sure how to pronounce it exactly, but super fantastic work with this. And also, Enforcer, have you reached back out to him, by the way? Because I told him you'd be reaching out.
I have not reached out to him yet, but we will be reaching out soon because there are just a few small modifications that we're going to make to this flag, but this is the one. So Pterosaur can pretty much be credited as being the Betsy Ross of the LSA flag because this is pretty much it at this point. There's not really going to be a lot that's changing on it. This will be the flag design. So I hope y'all are looking forward to it because I'm also going to tell y'all a little bit more behind the scenes. The merch store is shaping up. We talked about that a little bit on Twitter today, but we are actually getting the merch store ready. Hopefully it'll be ready by the time of LSA Day or a little bit after LSA Day, maybe just a few days later, and we are going to have these flags on the store. Of course, they're going to be modified a little bit more, but you can pretty much bet that this will be like the final flag design. And we are also going to be doing something really cool. The first flags that we're going to be putting on the store, because we have a huge ability to do extra magic special things, now that we're running the merch store entirely on our own and managing everything in the background, we are actually going to be making this eagle gold on the flag for the first few of them. It's going to be a very limited edition run, and Matthew and me are going to be signing these flags before they go out. So the first few limited edition flags for the Lee Spring Army are going to be golden eagles, and they're also going to have our signatures on the top left corner in gold Sharpie. So, of course,
also, if you want to give the folks a heads up to see what we're working on, we're working on so many projects in the background right now because we have so much time to work on it. There we go. Give them a sneak peek of that thing.
Here it is. We're still working on this at the moment, but if y'all want to be notified when the store launches, you can put down your email here. We're probably going to give it like a week countdown for the release of the merch store, and then it will be live. We are going to be doing the coolest merch items that we can imagine here. We're going to have probably, well, of course we're going to have flags. We may come up with Well, actually, we're just going to have the one flag. It's going to be the one LSA flag beyond the limited edition version. We're going to have t-shirts. We're going to bring back our old LSA line of merch with just LSA on some t-shirts. We're also going to be coming up with shirts that have the eagle on it. We're going to be doing all kinds of cool stuff. It is going to be great because this version of the merch store, while being a lot more in depth for us to operate, because now we're kind of taking over the actual management and running of the store in the background outside of a third party doing it, we're going to be able to do a lot more because of that and get you all items that I think would actually represent the spirit and culture of the Lee Spring Army a lot more than our old merch store was able to. So I can't wait. I'm excited, and hopefully soon we will be able to release this merch store to all of y'all. And on top of that, here is the ultimate winner. This time, whenever you buy an item from the merch store, 10% of the profits that are made off of that sale will be going to a nonprofit for Ukraine. We're actually probably going to pick United 24 as the go-to nonprofit. So at the end of every single month, we're going to calculate up what 10% of the profits on the merch store were, and then we're going to send that in bulk to United 24 as a single one-off donation each month.
And this time, we're actually going to officially partner with them, and I'm sure they'll agree to it. But obviously, we got to finalize a couple of things with that. So that way on the site, we'll actually have a link to their website, as well as a banner at the bottom or the tops having United 24 on it, how the donations are processed, and how they go to United 24 as well. So that way it's all transparent.
It's going to be cool. I mean, everything that we're going to be doing here in the future is going to be really cool, because now that we have nothing but time to dedicate to this channel, we are going to be making this the best Ukraine war news channel out there on YouTube. Well, a lot of y'all think it's already the best, but I want to make sure that we actually can know that with certainty that this is the best channel. Also, Raga NYC said, are you going to make some patches? Yes, guaranteed. We will be making patches. We may even have community-driven patch drives to figure out what the next patch will be for each country, because I want to have a special patch on the store for each country that's in the LSA, at least the major ones first, and then we run through a lot of the minor countries next. So America will, of course, get the patch first, and then we'll be giving out patches to every other country beyond that. But it is going to be absolutely sick, and I just can't wait to get this merch store out to y'all. It's probably one of the biggest things we're doing in the background, and I just can't tell y'all enough. I am so excited for this. But still, with that, I hope that does address that well. I hope that that was worth your $50 super chat, Wilderness. This insight into the LSA, the merch store, and not only that, the upcoming flag. Also, May said Velcro patches for a hat would be nice. What if instead of that, we actually gave y'all real baseball hats, LSA hats? Oh, yeah, we'll be working on that too. We're going to be working on a lot. So if y'all are excited for this, I hope y'all are, because we have a lot coming in the future. But still, thank you so much once again, Wilderness LSA, for the support and helping the channel to keep rolling. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to Badger Resistance, who puts in a $20 donation. And huge shout out to you, the Badger, for that support. And he said, Enforcer, when will USA understand they cannot just sit on the sidelines with sanctions and pull their punches, even when they do support? Holding aid and appeasing will not stop Russia from launching anything in space.
And I thank you for the support, and I've got to agree with you, Badger Resistance. That is a very honest look at the situation. I don't mean to be critical, because it seems as though a lot of people in the pro-Ukraine sphere are starting to become haters of the West, which makes no sense to me, because the West has been the reason Ukraine has survived 2 years. It's just that now it's starting to become a little bit shaky. But beyond that, I would have to say the U.S. does need to understand, people in America need to understand, that we can't sit on the sidelines forever and just kind of be a passive actor. We are the most powerful nation in the world, with the most powerful military in the world, and the most powerful allies the world has ever seen. Everything about the United States in our sphere of allies is a powerhouse. We have the ability to really do whatever we want around the world, even right now. Even with the Chinese kind of rising to the side, we can still do whatever we need to, without a lot of things getting in the way, except for nuclear weapons. So going off of that, I would have to agree with you. Holding aid and trying to appease the Russians and hope that that ends up better than where we're at right now, that is not a winning strategy. That is only prolonging the inevitable until we get dragged in, because the situation gets so bad where we're actively dragged in, not just sitting around doing what we are right now. And I would certainly have to agree that a lot of folks in America need to know. They need to understand what we're doing is what we did at the beginning of World War II and World War I, and what we're doing right now is just prolonging the inevitable until it becomes so bad we are forced to get involved, and then by then it's a lot costlier than it would have been. And some people also, to add this, some people took a statement, and I will defend this statement because I know what the context was in it being said, and I saw some people trying to spin it a certain way. A certain representative of the government here in America said that if America does not support Ukraine aid now, Americans will die in Europe years later. And a lot of people wanted to try and make that sound like a threat, like this guy was wanting to kill Americans on his own in Ukraine. And I gotta say that was being taken out of context for a deliberate reason. The argument behind that is the exact same one we're making here on this channel. Either we get involved, well, not get involved directly now, but either we put our foot down and make a firm stance now and put a stop to this before it gets worse, or we try and sit by and pray to God that this thing passes over us without us having to get directly involved, and then it doesn't, and then in a few years we're involved anyways, a lot worse of a state than we could have been right now, and then American soldiers and American citizens end up dying thousands of miles away inside of Europe when they didn't have to in the first sense. So I get what was being said with that. Of course, people took it out of context, but I would have to agree with that statement, and support for Ukraine should continue, and support for Ukraine should increase from what it was to even higher levels, so that way we can see Ukraine win this war and that it's truly over. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion, because I can only speak to my opinion. But with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And also, by the way, I got to point this out because I saw W13RD guy say it in the live chat. He said 161,000 subs, and you are correct. We did hit that number today, and we are like gaining a tremendous amount of subs here, even in the last hour. We're almost up to 161,200. So like our subscriber growth here recently is like gone up exponentially. And the videos are doing well too. So I got to say, huge thanks to you all because y'all are the ones hitting the like button and also subscribing as well. At least some of you are new tonight, but a lot of you are longtime channel legends as well. So huge thanks for that. And with that being said, we're moving on to our next super chat question, which goes to JKUB Music, who puts in a $20 donation and says, "Good day, mates. Love your work. And I had a flag idea I wanted to share. Two halves, top and bottom. The top half is NATO standard camouflage, and the bottom half is NATO blue or white for peace. And the center of top a lead or a lead, and center of bottom a loose spring."
And thank you so much for the support, Jacob. And I love to hear that people do really love the idea of having a flag. And I would love to have a flag like that. But we have already largely picked one from Pterosaur. Sadly, I'm like butchering your name. I'm so sorry. But beyond that, Pterosaur, we already have a flag design, and we're going to be going with that one. I have to say, it is sick. But your flag design sounds really good too. Maybe even it come in sooner, we would have been able to adopt it. But still, thank you so much once again for the support, and thank you for loving the LSA enough that you came up with a flag design idea. That is very kind and appreciative of you, and I'd love to know that everyone loves the LSA so much that everyone wants to have a flag, and everyone's coming up with cool designs and ideas for it. And so, with that, thank you so much once again, and thank you so much for loving our work, Jacob. Being one of our Australian viewers, you've been around for a while, and it's so cool to know that's your first super chat ever, because I know that we've answered some of your questions in the live chat, because I've heard Jacob many times before, and it is so cool to know that you support the channel tonight. I gotta thank you for that. It means a lot to us. It helps to make this channel possible, and helps us to keep this thing rolling, so thank you greatly, and I hope I was able to address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a 20 from Mace, longtime channel viewer and legend as well. And he says, "Nothing much to say besides God bless the LSA." And Margaret Hemsley brought up a very grim but brutally truthful statement in her super chat, and that is why we are here ultimately. And Slava Ukraine.
And thank you so much for being one of the real G's, Mace, of the LSA. Second Great Schism survivor right there. One of the moderators that was actually there during the Second Great Schism. And it is amazing to know that you're still here with us, Mace. It's great to know that there are others that are still here with us to this day that ended up surviving the Second Schism that were a part of the moderator staff. That's wild, man, because I'm thinking back about that. That was damn near a year ago, at least. It is crazy to think that much time has passed, that the first schism was though, is about to be 2 years ago at this point, and the second schism is now nearly a year behind us. It never will happen again, because I'm happy that it won't. But beyond that, I gotta say, it is wonderful to have you here tonight, Mace. And whenever I hear your name being thrown up in a live chat or a super chat or being brought up at all, it always reminds me of the second Great Schism, because I remember that you were one of the people that actually stood up for the channel instead of standing up for some power-hungry moderators that were really letting the limited amount of powers that they've been given on a server go to their head. And I gotta say, I appreciate that greatly, and I'm humbled to know that you're still here with us. But beyond that, God bless the USA. A very true statement. Love America. And on top of that, Margaret Hemsley did bring up a very grim idea in her question. It really more so was my answer that made it quite grim, but that's the reality of things, is that people don't really learn from history. A lot of people don't know history well enough to learn from it, or they get told the wrong kind of history. Because honestly, one thing that I learned getting a history major in college is that history is the ultimate propaganda tool, because you can make people feel like there is a age-old legacy that belongs them to a right. And history is used as a weapon, actually. The Nazis used history as a weapon to make the Jews out to be evil people. If you ever look into Nazi history deeply, that's exactly how it was used. History was used by the Soviet Union to make the communist regime look like a paradise on earth. History is used in every country as a tool of education, but also on the large scale as a tool of propaganda. And it's something interesting to me that a lot of people never go beyond the propaganda level and truly get into history and the actual details of it. Nevertheless, you do get some very hard truths out of history, like people will probably never learn from the mistakes of the past. One can only hope that the way that history rhymes, as Otto von Bismarck put it, isn't the same way as it was before. But still, thank you so much for throwing that in, Mace LSA, and thank you for being here with us still, and still keeping this channel running. And of course, Slava Ukrainian, thank you once again for making this channel possible. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Gary Russ, who puts in a $20 donation, and thank you, Gary, as well. He says, considering Kazakhstan, has been increasing ties with the West and snubbing Putin, don't you think the U.S. would be able to pressure Kazakhstan to not launch Russia's nuclear space weapon?
Man, I'm proud of you. You said it. You said Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan, let's go!
It ain't Kazakhstan, it's Kazakhstan. But it is Uzbekistan. Like, that is like legit, that's what it's called. But anyways, moving on from that. Let's see. I don't think they would. I hate to say that, Gary, because Kazakhstan has a small armed force, and Russia has been proven even in 2020 to just march into Kazakhstan and kind of throw out the government that they didn't like when they wanted to. And there really wasn't a way for us to stop that, and there really was nothing else anyone could do. So sadly, they're kind of at the whim of the Russians, because unless they want Russian armed forces marching into Kazakhstan, the Kazakhstani armed forces would pretty much be powerless to stop them. They kind of have to let the Russians use Baikonur. So sadly, I'd have to say there's really nothing that could be done. Kazakhstan is moving closer to the United States, though. A lot of countries are moving closer to the United States that border the Russians. Kind of a little odd how they all do that, right? I mean, like, that must be for absolutely no reason, because everyone loves Russia, according to Russia. But outside of that, sadly, there wouldn't really be a lot we could do if the Kazakhstanis tried to stand up for themselves, and then the Russians pushed in. Not really a lot we could do to try and save them from that fate and having a puppet government put in like they did back in 2020. But with that, I hope that does address that well. I hate to give a negative answer to that, Gary Russ, but that would probably be the reality, and that's why the United States is calling up the Russians today and threatening them and warning them, because the U.S. government also knows the chances of that succeeding and the Russians respecting the Kazakhstani decision would be slim to none. The Russians would probably use armed force to overthrow the Kazakhstani government at that point. And so, with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and while that's not a great answer, I hope that it was a good answer. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Flash1, who throws in a 20, and thank you very much, Flash, as well. He says, "Hey, Enforcer Brothers, in Latin, Enforcer Brothers."
You want to feed my pigeons some Fiji water?
But anyways, he said, in Latin, Enforcer Brothers is Fratres Executor. No, it's not executor. That's an estate leader. They said Fratra's executor, and Matt's the executor of the bots. Executor. He says great short war summaries and love your work on history. And please take a live chat question.
1 second. 1 second. I have to.
Executor.
Executor.
Yeah, I told you it was executor. I was right.
Damn, I don't know
Man,
Latin.
Eat your foot now. Eat your foot.
Man, I'm the fourth breathus.
Get your pigeons some Fiji water, man. Give some Fiji.
Now, if you don't like what I'm saying, turn off your station, you rat piece of shit.
I mean, why would you bring it up? You was a nice guy. You was a nice guy, but you were really a rat piece of shit.
Now, what the hell is this guy saying on Twitter? I do fentanyl? I don't do fentanyl.
Man, that's my like attitude at this point toward the hot dog man.
I thought you was a nice guy at first, but then I learned you was a rat piece of shit.
Oh man, oh my god. And dude, honestly, man, it's still a mystery. Who the hell is running those accounts? Like who is? Like
at this point, the hot dog man and all his buddies, we're gonna get them all together and say, just like Mike Tyson, now kiss.
Now shut up and kiss. Listen, I don't talk to reporters unless dude, oh my god, I can't go further than that on air. But anyways, beyond that, thank you for sharing that with us, Flash One. Getting back to the super chat and getting back down to earth. I gotta say, I really like that in Latin though, Matthew. Fratris executor. That is really cool, actually. What if, what if we put that on merch, or something? Because I actually like that Latin phrase.
I like that too, actually. Yeah, you could have me smoking a pipe or something, and you could put my face on there like I'm Latin all of a sudden.
Yeah, I like that. Or better yet, man,
being Latin means smoking a pipe.
What if we had a piece of our commission where it was the enforcer, like in a World War I? Well, no, like with a gas mask, but he was wearing like Roman legionary armor. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Like, hang on, let me go pull it up. Legionary armor, and let me go get that, and let me go.
And also, Kaltenberg, we do watch our language around here. We do. It's just we were imitating Mike Tyson, and that's always acceptable. A fine time to be vile is imitating Mike Tyson.
The law is the law, unless if it's Mike Tyson. Then the law is not the law.
You really want to tell Mike? You can't say that, Mike, because you might get your neck wrung out.
Man, I ain't telling Mike nothing.
No, nobody's telling him nothing.
Mike can do what he wants.
Did you see the episode where he was like in a shoe store or something, and he was like doing some shoe shopping with this guy that like does that for a TV show or something? He walked up to like these expensive like $5,000 shoes and grabbed them and started squeezing them like they were in plastic wrapping and everything. And the guy said, who was hosting the show, yeah, you can do that. While he's like squeezing the hell out of these like $5,000 shoes and looking the guy at the eyes like, are you gonna say anything about that? He said, nope.
Man, dude, I wouldn't say nothing either. I'd be like, yeah, squeeze them
harder,
harder, Mike.
No, screw those shoes.
I'd be like, squeeze them harder, Mike. Go ahead. But beyond that, okay, so this is a Roman legionary armor, all right? So the gas mask, but in legionary armor, and then we put like the quote below it.
Oh, I mean, that's an idea. That's something.
That long pause tells me that off air you're going to say that's a bad idea. To be honest, that's what that tells me. But beyond that, I think it was a cool idea. I mean, I like the idea, but the enforceably said it's the List Spring Army. That is absolutely true, because Mike Tyson don't take no crap from nobody. I thought you was a nice guy, but you just a rat. They call person language. And of course, language is always respected around here. We always keep our language clean. But with that, thank you so much once again for throwing that in, Flash. I like the idea of that being a Latin phrase. We're going to work on that. Matthew, take notes. And also, thank you so much for loving the war summaries. We love to do them, and they've been doing incredibly well. Like today's war summary did wildly well. It got 66,000 views. That's more views than some channels have subscribers. But beyond that, it is always great to know that people are enjoying those. It's also great to know that you love our work on history and what I talk about here. And we're actually going to be, I know I'm not going to tell you all everything going on behind the scenes, but we are going to start working on longer form documentary videos that are going to be very well made and very, very well put together. It's going to be that kind of production that a lot of other YouTube channels put on, that kind of quality. But they're going to be a little bit more rare, not like our daily.
And also, did y'all happen to see that short video we put out yesterday? We kind of snuck that in there, like in the middle between our normal daily short war video and also our nightly stream. I just went in there and was messing around with something just for sort of experimenting around. And it turns out I stumbled across something that, which we won't say it on stream. We don't want to give anyone else any ideas because we're going to let them figure it out for themselves. But we stumbled across a tool that allows us to make short videos super quickly based on long form videos, which is going to be a game changer for the way we put out content. Because shorts don't necessarily, help the channel out in a material way. It sort of just gets us basically more views and more subscribers that'll later see our streams and our videos later. But that's a super intuitive way to like make shorts. It like puts the captions on there and all that good little stuff. So like super cool. Like the technology is taking off these days. I love it.
And I would say, like, I'm not going to say what it is on air either, because that is going to be a channel secret right there. But it was really cool, like watching it work and how it does everything. It was really neat. But still, thank you so much once again for support. And we will make sure to grab a live chat question, Flash. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
And the live chat question goes to Judy Wilson, who says, "Do you believe that the U.S. can shoot down the Russian nuke?"
Yes, we can. It's just that we don't know what the implications of shooting it down would be. But we certainly can, no doubt about it. The problem is that you usually just can't blow up other countries' military hardware without there being some kind of a response in lieu of that. So that's kind of the issue that we run into there, is what would be the repercussions of doing something like that. But we can do it. It's not something out of the realm of possibility. We could actually send an F-15 up there to shoot it down, because the F-15 has shot down a satellite before. Bet y'all didn't know that. That's actually a really cool fun fact about the F-15, but it has shot down satellites before. Anyways, with that, I hope that does address that live chat, and thank you, Flash One, for sponsoring it. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Opus, who puts in a $15 donation and says, Air Marshal of NATO Aircom, Johnny Stringer, is currently visiting Sweden, and he's in Stockholm right now.
Oh, cool.
And he must have just gotten buzzed by that B-1 bone just a minute ago, because it actually didn't land in Stockholm. It went over it.
It went to St. Petersburg. I'm just kidding.
It took a right.
Oh, God. Oh, God. Go 9. Oh, dude, the Russians would be helpless to stop that thing. It would hit pretty much ground level with the wings swung out. They wouldn't be able to pick it up on radar. That thing would carpet bomb St. Petersburg if it wanted to. But we're not like that here in America. We believe in precision strikes with Ginsu bombs nowadays. And Matt, did you see the footage finally come out from that attack where we killed that guy in Iraq with the ninja star bomb?
Yeah, I actually saw that.
It was wild. It literally created a perfectly circular hole in the roof of the car, and that was it.
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't see why people are talking about it's inhumane, because I'm like, anything, when you get killed, that's not exactly humane with a missile or a bomb or something. So to me, it seems fine.
I think, honestly, after watching it, I was like, wow, the collateral was completely wiped out. There is no collateral. It was just the target that was killed, and that was it. So going off of that, hell, I think it's fine. And on top of that, watching it, I mean, the giant knife thing flew into the car so quickly. The guy was killed instantaneously. It may as well have been a missile hitting the car. It just knocked out the chance of accidentally killing civilians, which we want to avoid the best we can. We want to just kill the target. We don't want to kill everyone else around the area of the target. So I'd have to say the weapon's amazing. It performed incredibly well, and I went from being a skeptic of it to a believer, because it really did it did well beyond my expectations. You couldn't even really tell that the car was hit until it rolled past the security camera and you saw the giant circular hole in the roof, and I was like, no way. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well, talking about NATO's air power. But still, great to hear that the NATO air commander is in Sweden. You're in Sweden right now, Opus. You live in Sweden. So go meet the guy if you can, and give him a shake to the hand, because we're big fans of NATO. We love NATO here on this channel. We love America. We love everything that America's made. NATO is one of the best inventions, the best creations, the best alliances that the United States, Britain, France has been able to make. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Hamtero319, who throws in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, good sir. He says, in German. So this is going to be rough, because I haven't spoken German in probably about 5 or 6 years. So it's actually going to be very terrible. It says, Gelschutz mir Leichen der deutschen Volks.
And then hamsters.
Let's see what that means. Listen, let me put that in the translator.
Man, throw that in the translator. What does it mean, man? What does it mean? I have no idea what it would mean.
It's my corpse from the German Volks.
That's what it means?
Yeah, I mean, their corpse. I've never heard of a corpse typing.
Geschickt mal like mir in Deutschen, but anyways, thank you so much. Schultz. But anyways, with that, I think.
Wait a minute. Speaking of which, on the topic of sounding like that guy, I saw yesterday that historians have posted videos now of AI turning Hitler, one of his speeches in German, that screaming and yelling that he's known for, and turning it into English with the same inflection, same tone and voice and everything. And the guy sounded very familiar for some reason to something I've heard in the modern day. But it's incredible to hear that actually put into English, because the guy, you know, is actually as unhinged as he sounds when you hear him speak in German. He's actually that unhinged when he's speaking in English.
Wait a minute, you got to send that to me after stream, because I haven't heard or seen of that.
It's bonkers. Like, it literally just took him from speaking German and put him in English, and all the same inflections, yelling, same tone. It was perfect.
Man, I gotta tell you what the hell's going on with the hot dogs these days. Why can't I get relish with the mustard?
Yeah, he was like, when he was yelling and doing that crazy stuff, he was most of the time saying, "I've been persecuted. They're trying to get me, and it's only you can save me. I've stood up for you, and you should stand up for me." He's like saying that the whole time. And he just basically went through like stuff I've heard like politicians, you know, around here saying stuff like that. It's like, that's kind of weird. He's like repeating the same lines I've heard, you know, around town, you know, without getting political.
Well, interestingly enough, you know, those speeches actually had a lot of, well, at least publicly, a lot of merit behind it, because back in the day, he actually tried to conduct what was called the beer hall putsch in Munich. And when he tried to conduct it, what the Nazis attempted to do was conduct an armed overthrow of the Weimar, which was the government in charge of Germany at the time. So they went into the beer hall in Munich, took it over, and then it didn't go the way they thought, because they thought all the Nazis in Germany were going to rise up with them, but nobody joined them but the Nazis in Munich. So the Weimar sent down the police, and I believe the army as well, to deal with the beer hall putsch. And in the process of that, a firefight unfolded. Some of the Nazis got killed. One of the guys who was actually holding the Nazi banner got shot, fell on it, and bled onto the flag. And that flag in particular actually became a massive symbol to the Nazis. It was like their version of the Star Spangled Banner from Fort McHenry, but they called it the Blutfahne, which means blood flag, because it still had the blood stain from the dead guy on the flag. And nobody knows what happened to that flag, actually. No one knows what happened to it. It just went missing during the war. But beyond that, they crushed the uprising, and then the Weimar government did probably the worst thing they could do. Instead of executing him for treason against the state, the Weimar had some pretty lax laws on this kind of a deal, so they only ended up putting Hitler in the Munich prison. And over the 2 years, I believe, he was in the Munich prison, he wrote the book My Struggle, which y'all would all know as Mein Kampf, which was entirely about how there was a certain kind of people that were running Germany, and how they were the evil people that the Germans needed to overthrow and kill, and what the Germans need to do in the future, which was to expand eastwards into Eastern Europe and take it over and pretty much create what was called an autarky. But that's all for a different time. But still, that's why his speeches sounded like that, because to the German public, and, you know, also going off of the book, it looks like the German government was out to get him, although he conducted an armed uprising against the Weimar to try and overthrow it, and they were only responding to that. Anyways, with that, hope that does address that well. And thank you, Hamtaro319, for the support and helping the channel to keep on running. But with that, we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Jay Tessus, who puts in a 10 and says, "I really think you guys should consider memberships, and that there are a lot of people that can't donate larger amounts but could afford $3 to $10 a month, and ask your followers what they think." And Jay Tessus, I actually brought that up to the enforcer this morning, because y'all will remember that we've actually been against memberships in the past. But I saw something very disturbing this morning, and just solely looking at the issue itself, it looks like Patreon might be going a little sideways with the way that they're handling things these days. And it's concerning to me a little bit, because we do have a Patreon account, and we do get supported decently that way. Not as much as some other people who apparently had a Patreon account, but a little bit. And, you know, I'm not very wild about that, because they could basically snatch the rug out from under you at any point without any due process, it seems like. So memberships are basically the only alternative to Patreon at this point. And to me, it may be a viable alternative to that. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that for the longest time, y'all have known that I've sworn up and down we wouldn't have channel memberships because they're tacky. But at the same time, to be quite honest with y'all, we have to make sure that the channel can survive. And as time has started to move forward, it seems as though that is becoming slightly more difficult as the months pass, because people are having less of an ability to support the channel due to economic upheaval, for multiple different reasons in the Western world. And on top of that, it is just becoming a little bit pressingly more difficult. And we are starting to look into the possible alternatives, but that's something that we kind of, we really, really have to look into, and we have to figure out how to run the channel and how to keep it moving forward. And let's see here. Some people are saying start memberships. Certain Def said memberships, yuck. And yeah, I know, yuck. But at the same time, I got to be honest, Certain Def, we have to try and find a way to keep the channel running because, in all honesty, just being transparent with y'all, Super Chat support is decreasing as the months go by. Regardless, whether people want to support the channel or not, people are having less of an ability to support the channel the way it used to be, the old way we used to do it. And so we're trying to find a way to make sure that the channel can keep running, and we are able to do this as our full-time jobs and put all of our time, effort, soul, and energy into this thing. But with that, I hope that does address that well, because I don't want y'all to think that we're just throwing memberships at y'all for the hell of it. It is for a reason. It's make sure that the channel can survive and keep moving. But with that, hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again for support, and that is something that we are thinking about in the background. We're not dead set on doing that now. I want y'all to know that for sure. But we're thinking about it, and it may be something that comes around several months in the future. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And also, Certain Def said, plug Super Chats more. And I want to quickly address that for a second. We don't want to plug Super Chats. Because for a while, I felt like, we were kind of starting to get to the point where we were making it feel like y'all had to be obligated to support the channel. And I don't want any viewer to ever be under that pressure. And that is something I never want to do. We never want to have to feel like we're begging y'all for support and make y'all feel pressured to support the channel. That should be something that no viewer ever has to feel like they're going through. I know what that feels like because I've been a person who watches other YouTubers and then they say stuff like that and it doesn't really seem that great. And on top of that, y'all should be focused on enjoying what we're doing. Y'all shouldn't be focused on having to support it. It's great and it's wonderful. The channel has been running for 2 years that way. But at the same time, I don't want y'all to feel like, it is an obligation, it is a burden to support the channel. And so if we can find ways to work it to where y'all don't have to feel that burden and we can keep running the channel the way it is, I'd be far more happy with that. And I bet a lot of y'all would be far more happy with that too. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. But thank you once again for support, Jay Tevis. And we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Panama Floyd, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Panama Floyd, as well for that support. He's a longtime channel viewer also. Hey! He says, for the Channel Moving Forward Fund, and to take a question from the chat, please. And I'm telling you what, Panama Floyd, this channel is moving forward by leaps and bounds. Like, it's crazy. When we're able to put our minds to this thing, we're able to really make it take off. Like, during law school and even before law school, when we were kind of occupied with, thinking about going to law school, we really couldn't get fully entrenched in it. This is the first time we've ever been totally 100% dedicated to it. And in the background, if y'all can see every single project that we're working on, and we like to keep them a secret because we like to build up some hype for it and create excitement. Also, we don't want to show y'all too much of an unfinished product because then it kind of taints your view of it in the future. We want to finalize it first and then present it. But we got a lot of stuff going on in the background. It's going to be very exciting in the coming months, and I think y'all will be impressed. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I'll say, I think y'all will be impressed too, adding to what Matthew said, and thank you for the support, Panama. You're a true legend, like many others, like BC Skyman, like Walter E. Lakota, so many of y'all. And I gotta say this, thank you for putting some support into the Channel Moving Forward Fund. It means a lot to us, and like Matthew said, this is now our full-time jobs. Well into the future, may even become our careers to do this. We may just become full-time journalists. We don't know what the future may bring and what the future may hold. But one thing I know is that we have the best community ever to start that future with right here, right now. It is incredible to know that all of y'all are behind us. Right now, there are 161,090 of y'all. 161,190 of y'all behind this channel and backing us up all the way. And that just means a great deal to us. It means a lot. And it's inspiring. And it's truly it's just insane to me to think that this started for me when I turned 20 years old. And I'm now 22, 2 years later. And somehow at 22 years old, there's 161,200 people nearly who actually put grains of salt behind what I say. And that just honestly blows me away. And I'm more than honored to think that at such a young age, I've been able to gain the trust of so many people. It honestly is something I can't even really comprehend. But beyond that, I know what kind of responsibility we have, what kind of a faith y'all put in us, and I thank you so much, Panama Floyd, for supporting us so that way we can continue to press on forward with what we've been doing for 2 years now. And so thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to another channel legend friend of the channel.
We had a live chat. Sorry, Panama Floyd wanted.
Oh.
Yeah, Panama Floyd wanted a live chat. We almost skipped over it.
We'll get back to our friend of the channel in just a moment. The live chat question goes to, let's see here. It's going to go to Neil Vizanot, who says, why can't we shoot the nuke down once it's in orbit? And I thought the U.S. military practices shooting down satellites regularly.
We do, and we can, but the thing is that we don't know what the Russians would do as a response to that. So, that's kind of the issue. It's like saying, why can't we blow up Russia's aircraft carrier? We can, and we can do it very easily. The problem is we don't know what they're going to do in response to us blowing up their carrier. And that's kind of where the apprehension comes from. Because truly, there's nothing limiting anything we do. I mean, we could literally just go to China and we could just start bombing them tomorrow. But the repercussions of that, we don't know what they'll be. So that's why we don't just end up bombing them tomorrow. So that would have to be my answer. I know it's kind of like a cop-out answer, but that's really what the U.S. is always scared of, is what will the response be, not just from Russia, but other nations around the world, if we did something like that and shot down that satellite once it was up there. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and thank you, Panama Floyd, for sponsoring that live chat. And now it is time for us to get on to the true legend and absolute friend of the channel, which, funnily enough, I actually saw recently in person in real life by complete coincidence. But Matthew, what do we got?
And that viewer is none other than Jay Bagwell, who throws in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Jay, once again, for that support. He says, this channel is special, and years from now, you will look back with great pride and memories, and you both have chosen wisely. And thank you very much, Jay. It's once again reassuring to hear, even to this day, after making that decision about, I would say, 3 weeks ago to quit law school and get out of it, that we have chosen wisely. I think it was a wise decision. I love to hear reassurance of that because it was a very big decision. And I feel pretty good about it because I haven't once thought, oh man, I should go back to law school. I wanted to go back. No, hasn't crossed my mind 1 minute. And to be honest with you, I pretty much do anything rather than go back to law school. I'm like a person that just got out of prison. I'm like, I'm not going back. I'm not going back. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta thank you for the support, Jay Bagwell. And thank you so much for being a friend and a massive viewer of the channel as well. A true old guard through and through, like many. But I will say, yes, we will look back and have great memories of this. Honestly, probably in years' time, we may be looking back. This is honestly the kind of thing I'm envisioning, is that years in the future, I'll be looking back, probably will have finally run for a political position and will have either won or lost the election. Who knows? You never know how that stuff goes. But this YouTube channel will still be here, and hopefully by then we'll have grown it into being one of the largest news channels on the entire platform. And years from now, I'll make a video probably looking back at the very origins of this channel and what we were doing back then, and I'll be looking back on it with pride. This is the biggest accomplishment, the biggest achievement I've ever made in my life. Crazily enough, I've been doing it from 20 to 22 years old. Just 2 years after I had graduated high school, I started doing this, and was in college trying to get a history degree. It's crazy to think that we've been doing this, and really we're still so young, and there's still so much to do. There's still so much that we can help out with and hopefully improve. And it's amazing to think what this channel has already achieved now and how young we really are. Because like I've been thinking about it when the second year came around, when 2024 came around, I was like, wow, You know, I'm about to be 22. I've been doing this for nearly 2 years. I'm getting so old, but in reality, we're still so young and still have done so much. And it's crazy to me that we have been able to do that. And so thank you so much for that, Jay Bagwell. And also, I got to make sure to pick up on the reference. You both have chosen wisely. That is from like the Indiana Jones movie, Matthew, where he's like Raiders of the Lost Ark or whatever. He goes into the cave and he's like, wait a minute. Jesus wouldn't have made a cup out of gold. He was a carpenter. And then he like picks up like the wooden chalice and he drinks out of it and he doesn't die. And then the Crusader guy's like, you have chosen wisely. And then he runs out and then the whole cave collapses, whatever. But still, thank you so much once again for the support. And I hope that does address that well. And thank you once again. We're on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to Bex Chitwood, who puts in a $20 donation, and I don't see a comment attached to it. So thank you very much, Bex, for helping us keep running. And Enforcer, what say you?
And thank you so much for the support, Bex Chitwood. And Bex Chitwood did not throw in a comment, but nevertheless, I am greatly appreciative of your support and helping this channel to keep running. We're always thankful to everyone who wants to see the Lee Spring Army succeed. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, big shout out to Junebug72, who puts in a 10 and says, I am choosing to think about the 11 abducted Ukrainian children who were returned, and that this world is definitely shifting fast, and may goodness and love win in the end, and slava to all, just and good night.
And thank you for the support, and good night to you, Junebug72. You're still here right now. And also, I would say that that is a good thing to think about. It's certainly a silver lining out of it all, and it's great to know that those 11 kids were returned, but there's still many of them that are inside of Russia that we don't know about, and hopefully we'll be able to see them return safely to Ukraine, alive and well. But hopefully the world will be shifting fast in a much better way than we've seen before, because I always, while, you know, things have been a little grim, I always like to think of myself as an optimist and always think for the better in the future rather than the worst. But still, thank you so much, and Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, big shout out to BC Skyman, who puts in a 10, and also Jamie Winthrop, who put in a 5. And BC and Jamie did not leave comments with that, but thank you very much to the both of you. While I'm absolutely struggling with talking right now, I have no idea why. It's like my mouth is like going haywire. Struggling, I'm telling you. I think it was that Mike Tyson impersonation. But thank you very much, BC and Jamie, for that support. Enforcer, what say you?
And I thank y'all both for the support, by the way, BC Skyman. And let me make sure that I get the other name. Damn it, I had both of y'all in my mind. And
Jamie.
Jamie! Why in the world is he not showing up in my sheet? Like, I was looking around
for
that
up, Jamie.
Pull it up, Jamie. But thank you, Jamie and BC Skyman, both of y'all for the support. Y'all didn't throw in comments, but y'all have both been around forever. I know that's why y'all aren't throwing in comments, because there's very few comments that one can come up with after nearly 730 days, but nevertheless, y'all's support is greatly appreciated and makes this channel possible. I thank y'all all once again for that. I thank both of y'all for that. And if it wasn't for y'all, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible. And so thank you to both of y'all once again, and thank you to BC Skyman for being an old guard and true channel legend. And before we move on, Matthew, I'm not going to lie, that happens to me sometimes over here. It almost started happening to me at the beginning of the stream tonight. I don't know what it is, but sometimes my brain will just shut down, and it's like it doesn't really know how to work my mouth anymore.
I think I know what it is now that I was sitting here. I typically have stopped drinking coffee at night when I come on the stream, because I found out that the coffee actually does more harm than good, even though it does cause me to wake up. It just like absolutely wrecks me though after the stream. So tonight I actually took 2 of those caffeine mint things I have over here. And I just remembered that, and that's what's causing it, because I'm thinking, why am I like, my muscles aren't cooperating in my mouth. Like I'm talking, but it's like you're like got lockjaw or something like that. It's like, I think it's the caffeine, and it's not agreeing with me tonight, but you know, it happens.
It happens. What can we say? Like, what can we say? The risks of running a YouTube channel. But still, with that, I hope that does. By the way, y'all, did y'all just know this? 9 minutes ago, it became the 23rd of February, which technically means today, like right now when we're running the stream, it is already the second year's anniversary of the war in Ukraine in our time zone. But I do have to say this, the actual beginning of the war will be tomorrow, right when our stream starts at 10 p.m. Eastern time, because if y'all didn't know, the reason why the stream runs at 10 p.m. Eastern time is not just because it's a good time. that is literally the first hour, at least in my time zone, that the war in Ukraine began at, was 10 p.m. Eastern time, or 9 o'clock Central time, which is our time zone. That was when the first missile landed in the city of Kyiv and the war was on. So that will actually be the technical beginning of the second year of the war in Ukraine. You know, technically by day, it's now, but it'll actually be by the beginning of the stream tomorrow. So with that, I hope that cues y'all in. Why the stream is at 10 p.m. Eastern time? It's not just because it's the late night show. It's literally because that was hour 1 of the war 2 years ago. But with that, hope that does address that well. And thank you once again for support. And we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Cliff H, who says, Marmot, please. And topic, the additional sanctions. He's giving you a script for the Marmot.
And let me go get it. While someone's saying the screaming is too much. Hey man, like it's the stream. If you don't like it, go watch the short videos. But let's see here. Marmot.
I'm usually pretty serious on the short videos, typically these days.
Yeah, I mean, you know, people like Keith, like the thing to me is that we make two separate kinds of content for two different sorts of viewers. Like this is for people who want the in-depth stuff and be here and also get a little bit of laugh and keep high spirits during the war. And then the short war summaries are for more serious people who want their information in a concise manner. So I mean, if you don't like the streams, there's the short videos. And
then the people that can't handle us talking whatsoever, there's Twitter.
Yeah, and then the people who just can't stand us, there's hot dogs. And crying.
Oh yeah, the hot dog community. They'll welcome you with open buns.
I did not see that coming. That was
actually sounding wrong,
dude.
That's actually very wrong. Actually, that's very bad. Actually.
Oh man, him and his brother. You know what's up? It's like, dude, that's like projecting a lot. Like,
stop, man. That crap is like freaking nuts. Like, I'm not gonna lie,
dude.
Hello there.
Oh, hello there. Hello, Governor. Would you like to talk about sanctions? I would like to talk about sanctions.
What if we give the Russians what they want? What if we give them money and stuff like computer pieces?
You are weak. You're weak, Governor. But anyways, I hope that's what you're kind of looking for a little bit, because I have no idea.
Bro, can I get my hot dog with extra relish, please? Good sir.
Oh, Governor, this mustard's laced with cyanide. I'm spitting out blood, Governor. But what the hell's going on here? And I would not.
They said, could you spit a few bars, bruv? Just a few. Lay them down, mate.
Lay them down, mate. Lay them down. I had to put it the sound.
There's even blood on the ground. I just noticed that the Marmot spitting blood and there's blood on the ground.
Oh, dude, on that leaf.
Yeah.
Bro, that Marmot be spitting facts and spitting up blood. It'd be terrible.
He's putting his blood, sweat, and tears and tail into this.
Putting that cake into this. But anyways, with that.
Man, that Marmot is bricked up.
Man, that
or caked up, whatever the term is.
Man, that Marmot is thick and caked up, man. Like that Marmot.
Yeah, caked up. not the other one. I think it's actually caked up now that I think about it.
Man, I'm telling you what, man, that fly is just an absolute awe of the thickness. I mean, goodness gracious, thick with 2 C's. But beyond that, thank you for the support. I hope you enjoyed the Marmot, and I hope you enjoyed the little script I came up with there on the spot. But with that, thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Victor Fyodorov, who puts in a 10. It says, how far can the West go before NATO gets involved in some way or another, and does the whole country of Ukraine have to be occupied?
I don't think NATO is going to really get involved unless the Russians directly force our hand. A little unfortunate, well, fortunate and a little unfortunate depending on how you look at it. But I don't really think that NATO is going to get directly involved at all, because it has been 2 years now, and we've had ample opportunity to get directly involved for certain reasons, but we never have. And that's kind of giving me the idea that we probably never will, unless if something massively changes and there's a direct Russian threat to the Baltics or Poland, and then we'll probably get involved. And so with that, I hope that does address that quite well. And thank you once again for support, Victor. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Octavian Timosuranu, who puts in a 6 and says, with the recent breakthroughs in AI, Sora, how concerning is the prospect of deepfakes being used by Russia to advance their propaganda in the West? I would say very high, Octavian. Sora is something that I really can't wait to come out because I want to use it in videos, and it's super realistic. but it's also something that's going to be very, very damning when it comes to figuring out what you should believe when you see it and what you shouldn't believe. Because if you haven't seen it, Enforcer, it's like a hyper-realistic AI that creates videos based on a text prompt. It's like ChatGPT, but it creates whole videos, and it's very real. It looks like real life. But Enforcer, what say you?
Huh. I'll have to look into that, and that is kind of concerning. I mean, maybe they could try and do that, but then again, you know, people could easily fact check that. You know, there are fact checkers on Twitter, although the play, like, I'm not gonna lie, kind of is a cesspit, but we're there, so I can't really say that much bad about it. Although we still have not been approved for monetization over 6 months. But beyond that, I will say, it probably would advance their propaganda for ignorant people who don't fact check anything, but for people who actually pay attention to, like, the office of the President of the United States' website, which publishes all of his official announcements, speeches, and stuff like that, it probably won't really help to forward their propaganda goals much, but for the ignorant it will. And sadly, I hate to say it because I really like to be an optimist, but I have started to see that there is a decent amount of ignorant people out there. And some people are going to take that in a political skew and try and make it sound like only one political side is ignorant. It's actually really like I would say it's the base of both political sides that are wildly ignorant, but they make up kind of like the foot soldiers of both political groups, and they're usually the ones that are that are the loudest. But beyond that, I hope that does address that quite well. Boy, my election is going to be a dream, man. People are going to be pulling out audio bits like that and playing them, and man, it's going to be great. But anyways, with that, thank you so much once again for support, Octavian. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Mark Gagne, who puts in a 5 and says, you should include a leaf spring in our flag. And do you agree?
And Mark, we have Eat Me Looking Juicy. I like it. It's really good. And yes, we are having a leaf spring in the flag. It was just so hard to figure out how to do it, but Pterosaur did it. I said it right that time, right?
You did, actually, I think.
Hey, I like that. But still, thank you so much once again for support, Mark. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And Pterosaur has sent a revision. As we speak, I just saw it come through in the Discord thing. And Pterosaur, huge thanks to you for working on this, by the way, because that is extremely generous to donate your time to this, and I can't say it enough. Thank you very much, because I don't really have these type of graphic design skills, even though I try, and you are definitely much more skilled than me, so I really do appreciate the help. So let me send this to the Enforcer real quick so you can take a peek.
And we're going to be taking a peek in just a second.
Let's see here. There we go. Yeah, there it is. Let me get rid of that thing above it real quick.
And let's see here.
There you go.
Oh, I like the head. The head's getting pretty good. And Pterosaur did this live. That is actually really cool. But Pterosaur, one thing I would like to see is somehow to fit LSA into the body of the eagle. That would be really cool. Or, I mean, actually, this doesn't look that bad, I'm not going to lie. But if we could also have a version that fits the LSA in the eagle. Like, right here where this little, like, joint on the leaf spring is, right there, like, have LSA somewhere in there, you know, where, like, it kind of, like, grows to be the tallest in the middle where the S is, and then it kind of, like, tapers off to the sides to be a little bit smaller. That would be sick. I think that would look really cool. Maybe I'll be wrong, because this might actually be a really good design for the flag. This might actually be the final one right here. But if you could make the other one, you'd be a legend. And hopefully it'll look really good in the end. But I'm loving this. And I can't believe Pterosaur did this while we were on air. Like, I made, like, some of the recommendations on air, and Pterosaur immediately did it. Or Torosaur, because Miss Deesa said the P is
I'm told it's
silent.
Pterosaur now.
Yeah, Pterosaur. Now we know it's Pterosaur, but nevertheless, we sound like idiots now because we call Pterosaur or Pterosaur for like hours. But still, with that, thank you so much for throwing this in. This is one of the coolest things that we've gotten in a while. It's the best flag design I've seen, and it is truly a work of art. I can't wait to see this thing. But still, thank you once again. I hope that does address that well, and I can't wait to see the final flag design. Also, did he change the tail? He did a little bit.
He did. He changed the tail. It became more pointed.
Became more pointed, and I like it. I like it. I like that design. That is a sick one. But with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Epic Trains Canada, who puts in a 5 and says, so will Latvia import grain from Ukraine instead of Russia? And it sounds like a win-win to me. And Igor, Slav Ukraine.
An Igor! And also, thank you for the support of Epic Trains Canada. Sadly, we don't know that at the moment, but it does sound like a win-win to me, and I actually brought that up earlier in stream. I said that would be a really good idea and a great way to substitute. But with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to CK Bold, who puts in a 5 and says, take a live chat question.
And we will CK Bold asking for the usual. And with that, Matthew, what do we got for the live chat tonight?
And the live chat question is going to go to Troy Thomason, who says, today the U.S. experienced widespread outages of cellular service, and some attribute it to solar flares and some cyber attacks. And did other countries experience it, and what are your thoughts?
It was a cyber attack. Matthew actually put some information out about that on Twitter today. From what we understand, it was largely a cyber attack that took that down, because I don't think any other countries were affected. It was just us, and I think U.S. officials also confirmed that it was a large cyber attack. So with that,
so here's what we know so far. We know that it started in the morning with a problem at AT&T. And at first, they weren't sure if it was a technical issue or what was happening, but cellular networks were having major issues. And I don't think anyone's actually come to the concrete conclusion yet that it was a cyber attack. I think the FBI is investigating that at the moment. And also, it spread to pharmacy networks as well somehow, and it messed up a bunch of prescriptions and also people able to get their drugs on time. So, you know, to me, it has all the marks of a cyber attack, and apparently the government thinks so as well. That's why they're investigating it like one. And I really have a strong suspicion that that wasn't simply a technical glitch. But, you know, it's up to interpretation.
And so with that, I hope that does answer the question fairly well with a little bit of extra corroboration there. And with that, thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Chuck Hare, who puts in a 5 and says, new to Super Chat, Slav Ukraine. And by the way, probably a good move on law school. I think so too, Chuck.
I think so too, Chuck. I thank you for being a yes man. I thank you for being a yes man and backing us up. But on top of that, all jokes aside, I do think it was a good move, and I thank you for agreeing with us. It wasn't for us. I don't think it was. And also, Matthew, you may have not been in a group me or anything, but for some reason, I was still in a group me today. And interestingly enough, what was kind of wild is that I found out something really interesting. I'm not going to lie. Apparently so, the finals are coming around.
The finals in February. It's late February though. Like don't those come around in May?
Those are in late March apparently. From what I was hearing, because the group meeting said, "Hey y'all, I know that the finals are around the corner, so this is the last time I'm going to be bugging y'all and mentioning something to y'all." And I was like, "Huh, like that's really wild." But with that, I mean, pretty freaky, weird stuff, you know? I was like, that's wild. I was like, no way, and I'm not even there for it. We didn't even have to write that stupid paper, Matthew. You know, that one, what the hell was it? I don't even know. I don't even care to know. But anyways.
It was a summary judgment of what we were working on.
Yeah, tough stuff. But anyways, with that, hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Joseph M. Seco, who throws in a $5 donation. And thank you, Joseph, as well. He's a longtime channel legend, as we all know. And he says, on memorable days, you should start your live stream at 1900 EST. And my father goes to bed at 2200 EST. And he said he'd watch Saturday if you'd start at 1900 EST.
And interesting, Joseph. I thank you for the support and sharing that with us. Sadly, I hate to say it, but we wouldn't be able to start earlier because there is a limited amount of time in each day. And nowadays, for 2 years now, it's become tradition that I've kind of scheduled my day around making sure the stream runs. If anything, hell or high water, the stream will always run. So, going off of that, I would have to say, I mean, like, we could try on some days, but it's really hard to even know when memorable days will come around because, you know, to be honest, sometimes the breaking news happens right when we're making the news that night. So that would be a little tough, but nevertheless, I thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep running, because folks like you do help to make this thing possible. So thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, by the way, I saw some folks saying that maybe the solar flare that happened today was the cause of it. It was one of the most severe type of solar flares that happened earlier today. It was like an X class or something like that. I don't know how they grade those, but it was very serious. I wouldn't fall into that because I don't think that was the case. I think it was more likely something malicious, because typically, something that serious is not caused by a solar flare. But I could be wrong, but it's a hunch. But moving on to our next super chat, we have one from Sully Canuck, who throws in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Sully, once again for that support. And he says, "You're doing great, boys. You're doing great."
And thank you so much for that. Thank you for saying we're doing great, Sully Canuck. It means a great deal. I mean, it's not just the support that means a deal. That helps us keep the thing running. Of course, we can't exist without it. But just saying we're doing great, it means a lot to us. It really means a lot to us now because this is all we do. Every day, we just live, breathe, eat, and sleep this stuff. And I got to thank you for saying that we're doing a great job. You've been around for so long that I know we must be doing a great job somehow, some way, because somehow you've been able to bear with us for 2 years in all the things we do. And so thank you for the support, Silly Canuck, and thank you for really enjoying this channel and the Lee Spring Army. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Neil Vizanant, who puts in a 5 and says, "Off topic, but I'm trying to start a business using Patreon. And where did you find that news? And I understand if you need to compromise to keep going." And the news just came through the grapevine. It happened to a YouTuber here, obviously on YouTube, and they were using Patreon as a way to support themselves almost entirely, according to what they said. And then it got rug pulled based on some statements that were made. They were apparently allegedly creating a hate group or something like that, which I don't really understand how that worked, but it happens. So it got pulled out from under them. So that's why I'm concerned about Patreon, because if they're willing to do that in that capacity, then they can do it to anyone. But Enforcer, what say you?
I will say that's how we got the info largely from viewers today that was talking about that with Patreon. But one thing I will say, I mean this in the most neutral of stances, because this is something that we ended up getting beat down for 6 months ago, and the Dark Ages finally just ended a week ago, and we're finally back in the golden age of the channel where we're growing and people are enjoying what we do. But I don't mean to dwell on this, but I'm going to say a little bit about it. So back in the day, there was a thing where we were getting harassed by someone who has a mental illness, and we ended up trying to deal with it. And a whole bunch of people that didn't really know what was going on before that ended up jumping to this person's defense, not really knowing anything that they did, and even sometimes excusing the actions that they had taken, which are pretty much terroristic. And one of those people was that particular person. At least not publicly, it was quietly in the background, but we were told about it, and it was confirmed. And some of the things that they said about this channel was that we were only in it to do it for the money. And that's been something that a lot of people, not really a lot of people, but a few YouTubers, especially this one particular person with some severe brain damage, continues to try and say no matter what, even on nights where we end up getting age restricted and no one can throw in a super chat, and then we keep running it, or the Sunday fundraisers where we don't make a cent and we don't have channel membership. So on those days we literally just don't make anything, but we still run the streams because we care about them, and we've only missed one over the history of the channel. People still say that about us. At least a few YouTubers, and that guy was one of the ones who quietly said it in the background from what we heard. And now that their Patreon has been removed, now they're going to start talking about how they're not able to make money. And it's kind of, I'm not going to lie, I'm kind of a little bitter when people said that about us, and then they start to whine about money, because it's like, I thought y'all didn't do it for the money, because y'all sat there and made it sound like we're only in it for the money, and now that the money's affected, now y'all are going to cry about it. It's like, that's something that, I'd like, feel sorry, I do feel sorry for him, but at the same time, I don't feel incredibly sorry, because they quietly said some sneers from what I've heard in the background about us doing this as a living, just like they do. And then when they aren't able to make income off of it, then they want to cry about it, but then they want to act like if we make income off of it, that's wrong. And, that's my honest take on it. So, unfortunately here, we're going to start working off of what we've learned today, but just wanted to kind of share that with y'all. Not trying to create a YouTube beef or anything, but letting y'all know my honest opinion on that, because that's what it was. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to David Millsaps, who puts in a 5 and says, thanks for all you do, Enforcer and Enforcer Matt. With all, genuinely appreciate your commitment and effort to this worthy cause. And thank you very much, David. We really do need to add up what the actual precise total is that has been raised to date for Ukrainian charities on this channel. It's somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.3, bordering on 1.4, maybe even past it. But we need to get an exact count on that because it's hovering around that spot, which is massive, absolutely massive. And I think we right now are currently the #1 fundraiser channel on YouTube for Ukraine, which is something that I'm very proud of that we've achieved here on the channel, along with all of y'all. And to me, that's more, I have more pride in that than basically anything we've ever done on this channel. But Enforcer, what say you?
Yeah, and I would have to agree. And also, I thank you for appreciating the commitment. It is truly incredible. I have to say, without a doubt, I absolutely love that we've been able to fundraise the way we have. And not only that, we've also been able to keep this going so well. I mean, we very rarely miss days of running this show. They've become a little bit more frequent nowadays, but even then, that's not really saying much because it's like once a month. But beyond that, I thank you so much, David Millsaps, for being here forever and enjoying our commitment to this channel. And not only that, enjoying it enough that you're helping us to keep it running, because all that together makes sure that the Enforcer will continue to persevere well into the future and continue to cover this war until the dreadful thing is over. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And you know what blows me away? And this is not to toot our own horn or anything, or putting anyone else down. That's not the objective of this. It's to point something out that the two young guys, which is me and the Enforcer from Alabama, of all places in the United States, with only one friend that we have in Ukraine, has raised more money for Ukrainian charities than some people that were actually from there. And that's not to put anyone down or anything like that. It's not like one guy used to say, it's not a pissing contest. Well, it's really not a pissing contest in this context. But it's crazy that the two Alabama guys have raised more for Ukraine than basically anyone else on YouTube. I'm very proud of that, in a very good, positive way.
I would have to agree. And this is something else that that really makes me proud, is that Alabama is looked at, we know it's looked at as a back state. It's a backward state. Everyone looks at Alabama like that in this country, and it has a stigma that goes with it. And as Alabamians, we have to continuously fight against that stigma to prove that we're not, backwards, backwater people. We're actually, intelligent people like everyone else in the country, and we have a decent amount to add to it and to help it grow. And it's something to know that we from Alabama have been able to somehow raise nearly $1.3 million, because we actually got a total from, dagnabbit, I'm going to have to go back and look. I think it was Philip Fixes that actually got us the total. I'll have to go back and check. But it's about $1.3 million, actually. We overshot a little bit on our rough approximation. It's closer to 1.3. But we've been able to raise nearly $1.3 million for nonprofits in Ukraine. We've been able to build an unbelievable community. We've been mentioned in General Petraeus' book. We've been mentioned as one of the top channels by the Kyiv Post. We've ended up getting to know soldiers from Ukraine. We've ended up getting to know amazing folks who are here in this live chat right now. And it blows me away that we've been able to do all that, and we're Alabamians. And people actually still do that as a hateful, trying to make it a hateful sneer against us, saying that we're just two people, we're two brothers living in a basement of our parents' house in Alabama. But it's yeah, we've been able to achieve so much just being two dudes from Alabama in a basement. So I actually don't consider that an insult. I consider that a compliment, that we've been able to do all of this from where we are and where we're from. And I think that's something that really makes me quite proud, to know that we're Alabamians and we were able to do something big that actually affected the world in a way, when so many people put people down from Alabama just because they're from here. But still, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And don't forget, like Mark Gagne said, top 10 in the Kyiv Post too. Super cool. And also a shout out from General Petraeus as well. So, gotta love it. I'm telling you what. Gotta love it. And we're just in the basement. How about that? But anyways, our next super chat goes to Arez Martinez, who puts in a 5 and says, could Ukraine easily head to Moscow like Wagner if they went from a place like Belgorod, if they wanted to? And good job, guys, and keep up the great work.
And let's see. Also, sorry about that, Indy. But could Ukraine easily head to Moscow like Wagner if they went from? Sadly not, because the border guards are probably going to put up enough of a fight that they get slowed down enough that the Russians could probably divert to fight with them there. And also, the Russians would probably start to use tactical nukes on the Ukrainians without a doubt, and they would use the argument that they're threatening their national security and their national existence, really, and that would be a proper use of nuclear weapons in a defensive doctrine like the Russians have. And so I hope that does address that well, Erase Martinez. It's a good idea, but there might be some serious issues that come out of it like that, like nuclear weapons. But nevertheless, thank you so much for saying it's a good job, and thank you for encouraging us to keep up the good work. We are trying our best, and your support is certainly showing that you enjoy it greatly. And so thank you once again. And with that, we are on to the next one. Now everyone's listing off the achievements of Alabama. And yeah, y'all are right. Everyone is right. But the thing is that we know how Alabama's looked at. Like, no matter how great Alabama's a wonderful state, and I love it here. Have not found a state that, in my opinion, I think is actually better in every category against Alabama. But a lot of people look at Alabama.
Texas is pretty nice.
Texas is pretty nice, but I don't know how the people are in Texas. You know, like by and large, there are some great Texans here on our channel, but you know, I don't know what the majority of Texans really are like. I've never been there. You may have been for a short while, but I never got to go there. But outside of that, you know, there's people, you know, like hot dog salesmen up in Minnesota that try and make it sound like we're from Alabama. And what they try and do with that is very interesting, because for them to always act like they're so against branding and profiling people, they really are into profiling people from Alabama and acting like just because people are from Alabama, they're stupid, backwards, and ignorant and inbred, which is largely what people think of Alabama. I mean, it's true. You know, there's really no denying that. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, we've been able to take what the stereotype is about this state, and we've been able to rise far above it and prove that Alabamians aren't like that, and we actually are, like everyone else in the country, intelligent and good thinking. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and thank you so much once again for all of y'all throwing in some kind words about Alabama, but the stereotype still stands, and we were able to rise above it quite easily. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Ed, who puts in a 2 and says, Irish Ed, and did you cover the plutonium sting?
In the plutonium steam?
Sting, like they stung, like, you know, like they caught them.
Ouch! Sadly, no. Sadly, I'd have to declare ignorance on that because I haven't heard about it. While Matthew laughed because he knew what I was doing. But still, thank you once again for support. Hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we're moving into our live chat questions now. We have the Morse code decoders of the stream. Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Paul Schultz, Kevin J, Rebel Stilton, Toxic Bananas, Tightlines LSO, and David Millsaps. The entire roster. They said in Enforcer, tonight's Morse code copy is a lot of coordinates. A lot of coordinates. A lot. Long live the LSA. And are those coded groups? What's happening?
And that is the sound of money, and y'all got it down on the nail. Y'all just hit the jackpot. The Morse code message was grid coordinates to a specific building inside of the city of Avdiivka, which is right here. It is this building in particular. The reason why I highlighted it is that I believe if the building is still somewhat standing, it is probably being used as a supply base for Russian logisticians. Of course, don't take that for what it is. I mean, I just kind of took a blind guess. But if you ever see the Ukrainians blow up this building and it did end up being a supply hub, just know I called it because I put down the coordinates for the place. But with that, I hope that does address that quite well. At least in for what the Morse code message is, and thank y'all for deciphering that on the eve of the second year of war. Unbelievable to think we've made it this far. And also, we actually saw the return of some people who were on way back when, on the first year anniversary of the war in the chat tonight. But with that, we are going to be moving on into 3 live chat questions, because believe it or not, this is marathon linked stream tonight, an hour longer than it normally would be. Because we got so carried away with having fun with y'all and getting to talk with y'all, and it's been absolutely fun. But sadly, it's limited our ability to get to a large amount of live chat. So we're going to get 3, and then we're going to round out tonight's stream. And so with that, we are on to the first one.
And this one goes to AF Kaplan, who says, would it be possible for the U.S. to carry out a preemptive EMP strike over Russian territory?
Possibly so. They could try and do something like that, but it would be really tough because I think one of the few EMP weapons that is really effective is a nuclear weapon. The other ones are also really expensive as well and require usually an entire 747 to operate, from what I know. But that's just off of my knowledge, and I don't really know a lot about EMP weapons, so take that with a grain of salt. But I hope I was able to address that somewhat well, and we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Wayne, who says LSA all the way, and that's what I'm talking about. He says, if Russia does go ahead with launching, is it possible that the U.S. can destroy it before it's in launch or in flight?
I would say we could
They'd
try
have to sabotage it on the ground before it actually ignites and takes off.
Yeah, because it would be impossible to really intercept the thing in flight, or while it's trying to secure its orbit. It would be next to impossible. So I would have to say you'd have to destroy it either before it takes off or after it's in orbit, one or the other. It'd be really tough to do it otherwise. At least in my, and I could be wrong, but that's what we know at the moment. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on, crazily enough, 3 hours and 40 minutes after the stream went live to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Reese Roach, who says, question for y'all. Since Poland is replacing its MiG-29s and Su-22s with FA-50s, do you think they'll give them all to Ukraine?
I think they probably will, because they don't really have a use for them. And of course, aircraft that have ended up serving their first life in their home country usually end up going to serve a second life in another country. And I bet you the Ukrainians probably will end up with a lot of those aircraft, in my honest opinion. But, you never know. Sometimes government bureaucracy gets in the way and they end up being scrapped in the scrapyard in their home country and never make it anywhere else. But with that, we have finally rounded out tonight's stream. I got to thank every single one of y'all for being here tonight. 40,000 of y'all have been here tonight watching this stream, and at the peak, 6.1 thousand of y'all were watching the stream. We were entirely honored to know that so many of y'all came here tonight to listen to this news and hear what we have to say. It's really something that blows me away every single night. I'd say that pretty much every single night too. But it really does honestly humble me to know that y'all all enjoy what we do, what we have to say, and how we cover the news. If you're new to the channel and you really enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe, because by no means do we run this stream a limited amount of time. We run this stream every single night, except for Mondays at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, covering the past 24 hours of the war and picture and video evidence that we're able to find across the entirety of the internet. I thank you all so much once again for watching, and crazily enough, I also have to thank you all for this. Right now, at this moment, we just made it to 161,200 subscribers. Today, at the today at the very beginning of today, we were at 160,891. So we've grown nearly 320 subscribers or so today, and I'm more than honored to know that so many people have joined the Lee Spring Army today, and that it continues to grow at a never-ending and all-consuming pace. I thank you all so much once again for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. Good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And good night, folks. Thank you all for another great stream. We'll see you all tomorrow night, which is Friday night. And thank you all for another great one tonight. And of course, Slava Ukraine, Herom Slava, and good night.
Yes. The Lee Spring Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.